meetings and committee meetings live or on demand at any time at tcaps.net/board. Please rise and join Miss Vanderford's first grade class from Silver Lake Elementary in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We are the review approval portion of the agenda. I do believe there is at least one change.
Yes, I understand that there's been a recent addition requested for a student field trip. So I would like to move to add that to discussion item as number 10G.
Okay. That can go in as 10G. Any other changes to the agenda? With that, do I have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
I need a motion to approve
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. I need a mode extra roll on that one because it's changed into your. No, okay. It's been a while. I had a month off and now I've got to get back going. Okay, we're moving on to recognition. Deferring to Dr. Ron Wagner.
Okay, so tonight we have two different groups that we are having the opportunity to represent. First is our outstanding educators. These are educators from across the 5-county region that are recognized by partnership with TBA Credit Union, Traverse Connect, and Northwest Education Services. We did have a ceremony last week. I know that Secretary Ballinger was able to make for sure. I don't know that anybody else was, but she represented the board. So with that, we're happy to have those folks to recognize tonight. We'll first do the outstanding educators, and then our Compass Award winners then will come up and snap a picture of each group. So I'm going to pass it over to Connie Taylor to do the introductions.
All right. Well, as Dr. Taylor indicated, what we'll ask you to do is when I call your name, if you're here, if you would mind, stand while we read all this outstanding stuff about you. And then when we've concluded announcing both our outstanding educators and Compass Award winners, we're going to ask you to come forward because the board does have a certificate for you. And then we'll move over and do the picture. All right. So starting with our outstanding educators, the first is Tanya Hellman, who's a second grade teacher at Cortate Elementary. And this is what the nominee said. Tanya Hellman has bled black and red as a cougar since being a cougar was a thing, literally. She was a student at the school when it first opened. Professionally, she spent her entire career at Cortate Elementary. Tanya's cougar pride runs deep. She wants everyone she comes across in the community to know that Cortate is a special place to be. Being recognized as an outstanding person in education highlights that a huge reason that Cortate is such a special place to be is because of Tanya. From helping families both inside and outside of school to pushing students with diverse abilities to thrive in the classroom, Tanya exemplifies excellence. She goes above and beyond in so many ways and is extremely deserving of this recognition. Next, we have Carrie Labonte, German teacher, West Senior High School. Carrie Labonte, known as Frau Labonte, is an exemplary German teacher at Traverse City West Senior High, celebrated for her high-quality instruction and commitment to student success. She has significantly grown and sustained a thriving 6-12 German program by fostering strong relationships, utilizing innovative teaching methods, and providing individualized feedback that promotes mastery. Beyond the classroom, Carrie has been a consistent leader throughout her 27-year career, serving as the TCAPS world language leader, mentoring numerous colleagues, and expanding the demand for German to the point where additional teachers are needed. Her dedication extends to organizing a highly impactful German school partnership and ensuring all world language programs align with national standards, creating a rich and engaging learning environment for students. Danke, Carrie. Next, Charles Taylor, band director, TCAPS shared time teacher, Grand Traverse Area Catholic Schools. The nominee says, "There's a difference between good teachers and great ones. Charles Taylor is one of the greats, not just because he cares if his students hit the right notes, but because he sees and cares for the person behind the instrument. Humble to the core, he passes every accolade on to his students, embodying what it truly means to be an Educator of the Year." Next, we have Kurt Rainey, Principal, Blair Elementary School. Kurt Rainey, Principal, Blair Elementary School, is an exceptional leader who has profoundly impacted his school community. Known for his personally greeting each student daily, Kurt cultivates a positive and collaborative environment where every individual's strengths are celebrated. His advocacy for Title I schools, commitment to open communication, and data-driven approach have led to a remarkable 50% decrease in office referrals and a significant increase in Blair's index scores from 56.75 to 84.95. Beyond academics, Kirk has fostered strong relationships with parents and community organizations, improving educational equity and transforming the school's reputation. Congratulations, Kurt, on being recognized as an outstanding educator. And our last outstanding educator winner is Betsy Wells, Administrative Assistant, Central High School.
She was not able to be here.
All right, I'll still read what they had to say about her, though. "We're thrilled to celebrate Miss Betsy Wells as a recipient of the 2025 Outstanding Educator Award. For over 20 years, Betsy has been the cornerstone of our school community, first at Old Mission Elementary and now as the heart of the ULI office at Traverse City Central High School. Her unwavering dedication, deep relationships with students and families, and quiet leadership makes her truly irreplaceable. As the longest-serving administrative assistant in our building, Betsy brings professionalism, care, and heart to everything she does. She's more than a colleague. She's a mentor, a connector, and a driving force behind the culture that helps Central High School strive. Congratulations to Betsy." And now it's my pleasure to introduce the district's Compass Awards. These awards are nominated by their peers within Traverse City area public schools and voted on by leadership from our various union groups. First, we are acknowledging Tom Wodak from AFSCME, Central Grade Elementary School Custodian, 7 years with TCAPS. Will often fill in as a substitute custodian here at Glen Loomis for the administrative staff, and he is always so friendly, kind, and does a great job. Tom will come to clean our building after he's finished cleaning his regular building, Central Grade Elementary. He goes above and beyond for the staff and students of TCAPS and does it with a huge smile on his face and a super positive attitude. We are so lucky to have him in our district. The next, for the TCEA, we have Shannon Rem. Elementary teacher, Cherry Knoll Elementary. Shannon is an amazing educator. Not only that, but she's also an advocate for her students. She goes above and beyond to ensure that every student is getting the opportunities that they need to succeed. She stretches her students' thinking and pushes them to appropriately grow and excel. She's an amazing mentor who is giving me so much amazing support and mentorship as well. Congratulations. This name should sound familiar because he was also the winner of the TCAA Award, Principal Kurt Rainey. Kurt has been with the district for 12 years. In addition to everything that we mentioned earlier, another nominee said, "Kurt is an extraordinary leader who consistently goes above and beyond to create a positive, impactful learning environment. He's directly contributed to the fulfillment of TCAP's strategic goals. His dedication, vision, and unwavering commitment to excellence makes him an ideal recipient of the Compass Award. We're incredibly fortunate to have him leading the wonderful things happening at Blair Elementary." Thank you, Kurt. Next, for our non-affiliated support childcare group, we have Veronica Diane Dillon. Diane is just an amazing overall person. Her dedication to this job is impressive and obvious to anyone who works with her. She's able to balance a genuine kindness with the ability to maintain a comforting structure for the kids. She's always ready to help where needed. When Eastern had an ECSE classroom a few years ago, Diane would jump in to sub if the assistant was out. The teacher at the time was thrilled when Diane was in the classroom because of her willingness to do whatever was needed and her acceptance of all students. Diane shows the same attitude she shows the same attitude in extended day and noon duty. She is a quiet, selfless employee who never seeks attention or praise, but is so deserving of both. Congratulations. For our non-affiliated administrator group, Patrick McManus, Director of Safety and Security, Glen Loomis Elementary, 3 years at TCAPS. Patrick has been a great addition to the Glen Loomis Administration Building and TCAPS since he joins as the Director of Safety and Security in 2022. Patrick came to TCAPS with a wealth of knowledge in all things safety and security. Not only has Patrick been able to hit the ground running and implement many new practices and procedures to keep TCAPS safe for students, staff, and families, but he's also brought so much more with his calm, approachable demeanor. Patrick is always willing to step up and help others where needed. I've had the joy of teaching district-led CPR classes alongside Patrick this year and have been able to collaborate with him and learn from his many years of hands-on experience in this area. Patrick is a great addition to TCAPS. And lastly, for our TCAPS group, Joy Ellenboss, Administrative Assistant, Central High School, 15 years at TCAPS. Joy has been with TCAPS for many years in the main office and has been a stable anchor for the entire office staff. With her pleasant demeanor, helpful attitude, and always present smile, she truly lives up to her name. Mrs. Ellenboss embodies the Compass values by performing her job with integrity, excellence, and always putting our students first. Her professional attitude, attention to detail, and welcoming spirit makes her a great representative for the TC Central, which is great since she is one of the first staff members our students, parents, and guests see each day. Congratulations. So if all of our award recipients would please come forward, we can get your certificate and we'll get a photo. Thank you.
Chief, I guess you better.
It looks like it.
You're welcome to keep that.
No, I was just wondering what I missed. What
Kurt, who? Oh, I'm sorry?
We still have one left?
I'm sorry, did I miss one? Let me make sure, I'm so sorry, guys. We'll find it. If I did, then you get a special honor in addition.
Sheila?
I did. So sorry. All right, everybody stand to the side. My apologies. Sheila Van Huysen, Food Service, Cook's Assistant, Eastern Elementary School, 10 years at TCAPS. Nominee said, Sheila is one of the most optimistic people I have ever known. She's worked in the Eastern kitchen as an assistant for many years and is always kind and welcoming. The lunchroom can be a chaotic place, but I've never seen anything faze Sheila. She just rolls with what the day brings and doesn't complain. Sheila educates students on healthy food choices and on proper lunchroom manners. She inspires students and staff with her positive outlook and kindness. There are many students who can feel anxious in the lunchroom, but Sheila is that constant friendly face that they can count on. And this means so much to the students. As a colleague, Sheila inspires me to be a better person and not to let a bump in the day get me down. While showing kindness might not be something we assess in the school as a formal capacity, the impact of kindness is immeasurable. Sheila makes the cafeteria and the school a better place. Congratulations. Come on up, Sheila.
We can get our outstanding educators first for a picture, and then we'll get our Compass Award winners.
You don't wanna open it up and be like, gee.
GTAPS, everybody's shared.
Students a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't realize they give just one school.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Another round of applause.
Curious.
white shirt today. I stand so there.
You're like the Academy Award and 2 trophies.
Students grades 1 to 5 fish.
Thank you.
We might have to curve it. That's okay. Behind shoulders. Right.
But that's June. It's interesting. I mean, excuse me, that's June of 2027. 2 years now. Maybe they're already.
All right. Thank you. Day and a half left. Good luck.
Nobody wants to stay for much. Come on. So fun.
Where did I?
We already got that.
Oh, well, that's right. Starting a new one now. Don't mess it up. Two students like procrastinate way to the last minute.
Yeah, no kidding. I would start as soon as.
Okay. So just a bit of housekeeping as we go through the next couple of items. We have a couple of different opportunities for the public to speak. And you can speak at both if you choose to, but the first one, which we will go on to now, which is the public hearing of the budget. That one is specific to just the budgetary item that is subject to the hearing. So with that, as president of the board, I declare this public hearing open to the public. The property tax millage rate to be levied to support the proposed budget will be the subject of this hearing. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, at this point, I will pass over to Christine Thomason.
Thank you. So the purpose of this meeting is actually to discuss taxes. In your booklet on page 2.2, it does spell out our non-homestead 18 mills for a general operating budget and the 3.1 mills on debt. So that is the actual purpose of the meeting. However, we use this as an opportunity to talk to you about the entire 25-26 budget and how we believe the 24-25 budget will end with our final amendment. So we'll wrap it all into one. I was gonna go through this fairly quickly since you got the information, but stop me if you have any questions. We'll start with the new budget, just providing some assumptions. Typically, we have a little bit more information than we do right now to be able to formulate more of an educated guess on an original budget. This year, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of information. I put the different proposed foundation increases. The caveat with the House is it's really, I don't even consider it an actual proposal as it was only a couple of items they addressed and not the rest of the budget. We did talk previously at the board about our reduction in at-risk 31A. We're anticipating about $1 million unless there's some legislative changes or the budget identifies something different. In this budget, we are anticipating an increase of 25 students over this year. And we are looking at maintaining the categoricals that we currently get at the same right now because we just don't have good information. We still believe on an average, we maintain an overall variance of all of our accounts of about 1.5 million, so we wrap that into the budget presentation. Again, just talking about the anticipated revenue, we went with the governor's proposal of 392. Normally we'll look at all three, but right now we just went with the governor's proposal. It's not very different than the Senate. If you look at an additional 392 per pupil, it gives you the estimated per pupil increase. And then we've also given you the estimated income revenue increase by having additional 25 students. Obviously with that, there'll be some expenses that come along with it, but that's how we come to our overall increase in foundation allowance. Fiscal year 25-26 at a very high level. Our fund equity estimate, again, that's an estimate because we haven't finalized the year. But according to our final amendment for 24-25, we actually believe it'll be a little over 13.5 million. We're just showing our total revenues and expenses for the year with an estimated 3.5 million shortfall. Again, given the information that we have, not actual information. With our projected variance, we're anticipating a draw from fund balance of about 2 million, leaving us still with 11.5 in fund balance.
Christine, what is that, what percentage is that, 11.5?
I think it's just shy of 10. The end of this school year, we're ending just a little over 10.
Yeah,
We believe, again, we haven't done the audit or finalized yet.
and their district goal has been like 15 to.
It's actually, I'm not sure if the new policy reflects it. The old policy said the goal was 10. I know you guys have spoken about 12, and we were there. Again, this is at a very high level estimate with a lot of information that is unknown at this time. Just showing history of foundation amounts, obviously 10,000 is a nice increase compared to the last 2 years that remained static. You can see what we were dealing with back in 2016-17. Prior to that, we did see like a mid-year adjustment of about $400 per pupil less mid-year. So that was a challenge, but we've overcome that and haven't seen that in the near future as any kind of prediction. History of student count, again, we felt pretty good this current year about trying to get more to a level perspective and not be in declining enrollment. Believe we've achieved that, and we believe we're gonna be up some students, especially with the addition of some online learning next year.
And those online learners are high school students.
And we're starting in middle school.
Currently,
Okay, but pretty
Yeah.
much you think they're.
As of right now, what we're taking numbers off of, our middle school is unknown.
History of fund balance, again, just informational for you. We've come a long way from the 2016-17 school year, and that was intentional. Showing some overall expenses for our general fund spending. Obviously, everybody knows the majority of our budget is people. We spend 88% of our general operating budget on salaries and benefits for staff. Other funds, I wanted to highlight this as it relates to, so special revenue funds, food service is one of them. This one is a little bit challenging for us to predict as it relates to free lunch. So because the state's budget is October to September, there's free lunch for all students until September 30th, which is very confusing to parents. It is unknown if it will be free starting October 1. So there could be a drastic shift in food service operations if that isn't free, especially by means of how much staff we have. We will be drastically overstaffed if it isn't all free by the state, and I don't know when we're gonna have that information. But the trick there is they have it through September 30th, so we'll have to do some communication once we find out, especially if we need to promote anyway more free and reduced forms, but if we need to make sure students understand that there is no free unless you complete the form and are eligible, if it's not provided by the state. Other funds, special revenue, community services is made up of our licensed childcare programs. That is a self-sufficient program. Learning enrichment and athletic program, that's LEAP, and it does have a small subsidy from general fund. But you can see the number of participants in both groups is quite high, and it is improving over year to year. And then capital projects and debt service, as I mentioned earlier, we are maintaining 3.1 mils on all property. That is something that we discussed during our bond informational campaign, is maintaining that. And then just kind of showing some of our completed programs and projects this year, and then just identifying that we have a long-term capital plan. So I'll switch now to the 24-25, and in your packet, that would be tab 5. Let me see if I have that right. So, sorry, tab 5 is the new budget, tab 3 is the final amendment for 24-25. So you can see in more detail some of the numbers. I'm obviously just compiling them and letting you know where we believe we're going to end for the school year. With the variance, we are projecting not as high of a draw from fund balance. Our original budget had 3 million. We're currently just shy of 1.5 million as an anticipated draw. When we close our books, obviously, we'll have some more information, and then we'll present the audit in November. Always take this opportunity to thank those that participate in compiling this information. Julie, Sandy, and Wes, I know, are all here, and they are the key players in a lot of different things related to budget, especially as it relates to the budget hearing booklet, the amendment, and also the annual financial comprehensive report that we do, that we did receive another award for excellence in financial reporting for our 20th consecutive years, and that is also the 3 of those people.
Congratulations, that's a crazy 20 years. So. Questions? I know, and I do appreciate the extra work that has to go into creating a budget when the budget isn't done. For reference, we do have to approve this budget by the end of June. And usually we don't have the budget approved by the state by that time, so I try and be better of my words than I have done in previous years, but I appreciate the fact that we have to create one budget and then do so much work to change it after we get real something from the state. So any other questions?
I do, I have a question. What happens if what you've gone with is the lowest of 3 estimates as to add to your overall per student foundation money?
Well,
If you get the 400, are you gonna put that towards your fund balance, or are you gonna put that more into programming?
not that simple, unfortunately, because while you have the fund balance, you also have, there are now almost 125 categoricals of different line items that you're funded. So for instance, we get $1 million we have in transportation. We have 31A at-risk funds. We have money that we've gotten for career and tech ed. We get all these different line items that are there, and school safety and mental health funds. You know, will they give us more and take away here? Is we have no idea. I mean, there's everything from keeping all those categoricals to whispers on the Republican side of the House version, we'll have none of them. And so,
But then they would go up on their
well,
first-
theoretically, right, theoretically. And so there's questions, you know, you may have a very hard increase here if they don't include a retirement payment. It's actually less money for us than what we're presenting tonight. So we just don't know. And when you get more in those, it's very restricted on what you can use that money for. So the foundation, when that's done, it is very wide open. My personal feeling is when the deals are done, it's going to be a mix of the two. And so we'll just have to see how those restricted funds are given to us and what the legislature says we can spend those on.
And at what point then can we continue to revisit this budget according to reality?
So the problem we have is we may not actually get this budget until the end of September after school starts. The state's fiscal year does not start till October 1.
Right.
So there are years in the past we have not gotten it till they struck a deal at 2 a.m. on October 1st.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to hire staff after you've already started the school year. So that's the challenge we run up against of is there even enough time to do anything? If not, you know, yes, fund balance, some of those restricted funds, sometimes the state lets you roll over to the next year. That's all questionable, and this is the furthest from having something concrete I've had in my 10 years as a superintendent, for sure, and even longer. We've had late budgets, but we at least knew what the House was thinking on paper. This is the first time we've never seen, by the time we have to adopt a budget, we didn't even know what the House was thinking. They have still not released it as of today. Christine, anything to add to that?
By way of formality, we typically bring our first budget amendment in January or February, and at that point, we will bring as much information as we have on all sources of revenue and expenses. And unless there are added expenses by way of administrative or something coming from the board, it would just impact the bottom line. So potentially, instead of drawing 2 million from fund balance, that would lower unless expenses go higher.
so that if we were again to face another situation like we did last year, when we were looking at the splits,
Mhm.
and we basically went into our fund balance to address that. You know, again, I think all of this is gonna impact, it is gonna take some careful monitoring, I think.
It definitely will.
It's gonna make our comfort of risk very difficult this year. I think the one good thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, the good news is that revenue estimates have, and not even
Yeah.
estimates, revenues of the state school aid fund are higher than projected, which means that it shouldn't be a terrible budget, it's just how it breaks down.
Unless they rob from the school
they
aid fund
take
to
from
give the
more.
general fund that is down
To fix the roads.
to fix the roads. We don't know what horse trades and everything are gonna come in all of this to know that for sure. On face value right now,
At least it's
yes.
better, at least it's
Yes,
good,
but-
it's a good sign.
But that could change quick,
Yes, it
so.
can change.
So related to what Beth just said about the split classrooms, then what's baked into this estimate in terms of the instruction?
This is our normal, the normal way that we've done our formula is what this was completely built off of.
Are we expecting then a certain number of splits in this budget?
We are.
And we'll have to revisit that
Or,
closer.
you know, we have some different thoughts and different things as we go through then, you know, tonight and even, you know, next month as we know. Again, we're kind of going that route, but we have some time a little bit to kind of make some decisions, to get some input from the board. But we have some other factors that
So
we have to go
when is
over.
that gonna come up in the discussion tonight?
Well, it might come in, we do have a negotiations component, we do have some of those that, you know, may fall into play. Again, as the budget kind of comes here, I think we're gonna have to revisit this probably, you know, each month almost as we go through and get a flavor of as it's going, where the board has a comfort level of going.
Obviously, we don't even know what splits we have until we see where the kids.
I mean, we have an idea right now, but again, enrollments can change as the summer goes, like we have
There's a
one.
little bit of uncertainty over the summer, but I mean, my understanding was after we had that late
Discussion.
summer.
We have a date
Yeah.
that we're going to, you know, complete say that we are or not, that we, of August, help me out, Dan?
August 13th.
Is when we will say this is what sections are, so going in so that we're not running up to, you know, back to school night from that standpoint.
Right,
But
right.
again, if the board wants to have conversations earlier, we're going to have some
I
opportunity to do
mean,
that.
just looking at the fund balance, and I've been serving now long enough to remember when Matt Anderson was on this board, and I think there were some people who really wanted to push the fund balance up towards 15%, if not higher. And I was probably the one who was saying, wait a minute, I think 10% seems reasonable, but now that we're getting down to 10% and then there might still be more, you know, that's where, you know, managing that proactively is essential.
There's a lot of discussions into play on that. And again, I think
Yeah.
we'll have some opportunity to speak a little tonight with that at various times. But definitely as we learn a little bit more about the budget and a comfort level of where we probably more truly are, I think, again, we can revisit some of that component sooner than we have maybe in the past. As we go through the summer, see enrollment projections change maybe a little. One thing that we have done this year that we're really hoping as well is we've combined all enrollments through the summer here at central office. So regardless of where a family may be looking to enroll, they come here able to do that paperwork. We'll have real-time numbers, things go in the system, so that we have some of those numbers, I think, a little bit earlier than we've had in the past.
I just had a quick question on, I'm looking at the slides from the curriculum committee from April and on student assessments, and it's talking about how the student assessments help inform our budgeting allocations. So I'm just looking for a high level example of, so currently there's 50% of our general fund is allocated to instruction. Maybe one example of how we use student assessments to come to that 57%.
That's all related in our mission-based budget meetings when principals are meeting with curriculum administration to talk about the needs in their building.
So that is happening. So we're using student assessments and 57% is the correct percent
That
to
I
meet the
can't answer.
goals, like say of the building improvement plans, I understand that the district doesn't have any targets, but because I really haven't seen the growth. I mean, I'm looking at them right now, the different building improvement plans, but I just want to make sure like 50% is the right percentage for instruction for classroom support to achieve what we've laid out with our goals regarding student achievement.
I don't know what we have a number of.
Well, I can give one example from secondary. So one example from middle school is we've decided to provide some tier 2 support in both math and ELA comprehensively at both of our middle schools. Brittany's been working really hard with the ELA group. We're staffing that with a certified teacher. I met with the math teachers and they got their interventions. Like that's something we use data to say we don't have anything here, and we took that off the top of our at-risk budget and said we need to do this for all of our incoming middle school students who are behind the gate academically. And then at the high schools, our biggest courses that we look to support are those 9th grade English and math courses, in addition to that TIE program that we run at both of our high schools is staffed above and beyond what I would say your honors chemistry or your AP numbers are staffed at, and we look to make those a priority first. And then as our master schedule spin schedules, we, kind of play with Dr. Van Wagner as to like, okay, we've gotta have this support. Do we have enough FTE in that building to make all of these other things run? So those would be two examples in which we
Okay,
use.
well, I appreciate that, and I guess I just wanna make sure like that the 57% number is the right amount allocated to instruction that allows us to achieve what we say we're gonna achieve in our buildings. And so if I feel confidence from our chief academic
What's
officer.
the 57% of general, cause we don't have 57, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have 57%.
So currently 71 million is allocated to instruction, the rest is allocated to student support
So
services.
student support services is your tier 2 and 3 services, it's just not the general instruction. So it could also be a support function if it is a teacher assistant working with students one-on-one on those subjects. It's just not classroom instruction, so it would be in support services, which the majority of that is related to instruction, some is
But there's
related
other,
to.
like when you look at the budget, this other support services is admin, custodial, drivers, right? For salaries, when we talk about the 88%.
Yes, that's everybody at 88%.
Yeah, but 57% of that goes towards classrooms and
And that's
instruction.
direct teachers,
And classrooms,
yeah,
exactly,
but
salaries.
not necessarily the tier 1, but just straight
Exactly.
teachers.
So, and I just wanna, like, when I
Yeah.
look at, and I love the student assessment study session, and I love seeing that we're using that to inform decision-making as we allocate dollars to make sure we're achieving our different goals that we've set out. So if we're comfortable with 57% and 71 million, like, that's all
I'll tell you, I'm comfortable with the percentage, I'm not comfortable with the amount.
I don't wanna talk about absolute amounts because I know, but I wanna talk about the
Yeah.
percent as the revenues
Yeah.
change. So
Yeah.
I don't wanna get into a debate about the amount, but I do wanna talk about the percentage.
Yeah.
Because, 58% is an extra $1.25 million. 2% is $2.5 million. And if we're saying maybe we're short on student assessments and student achievement, what would that look like? I don't know, but.
Come August, there's always a meeting every year that I remember where we get, whether we say we're not gonna talk about the budget until January or whatever, there's always a time in August that we have a really hard meeting that there's 4 or 5 bad choices to make. I think a lot of what you were saying comes into that. That is when
But
we
we're
do the
hoping to do that a
splits.
little earlier than we've done in the past, but what I'd say, Ty, is, we've done that definitely from our 2 most at-risk buildings. We've added, so there's an additional FTE at Traverse Heights and Blair. I would say that, as we've looked at, the biggest thing that could happen there is class size. It's the thing we get all the time across the district. And on average, and again, this would be averaging, not saying maybe a little bit more there, it's $1 million, a little over $1 million to lower class size by 1 student across the district.
Yeah, and again, I know I'm looking at the percent, but I don't need to go any further, but if we're comfortable, like that classroom instruction allocation at 57% of general fund is enough to achieve when it comes to student outcomes, that's all I wanted to hear.
I don't think it always translates into money that easily, but
Well, we are talking about money.
I
We're
know,
talking about
we are
71
talking about money, but
budget.
I think that's an important caveat.
I think the only thing I would add, Ty, is if you look under support, it's very specific to pupil support, which is staff working with students, and then there's additional instructional staff, that's another 11. So that is also instruction, it's just not specific classroom instruction.
Right.
Christine, could you pull up under section 5, the general fund budget for the fiscal year?
Mhm.
And it's got the 4 years presented.
Yes, thanks. It's, yes.
I just was noticing one thing, that under total instruction, the projection is almost a $2 million drop in expenses. And personally, I kind of anticipated this because we did just have 40 retirements. So that's obviously gonna be the people with the most experience on the higher end of the pay range. And even if we fill every one of those FTEs, they're gonna come in with fewer years of experience and therefore, lower to mid-range. So that's why I'm guessing that's why that amount is
That's part of it,
down a
yes.
little bit
Yeah.
for total
It
instruction.
also, and some of that is related to, we don't always necessarily through retiring staff have a difference in the expense because we are hiring staff in with their experience, so it's not necessarily on the lower range that we're bringing new people in if they already have experience. But that would definitely be one of the things that is different, but also it could be shifting from one category to another. But also don't forget that we did lose $1 million in at risk, so that is impacted and reflected in our overall general fund budget.
In the projection for next year,
Correct.
yes, okay.
Which we're fighting, but.
Yeah, and then the last thing is just regarding the food services, I think this is what you're planning, but we absolutely wanna start the
Already
new school
there.
year fully staffed. And then if something changes, we have to reevaluate mid-year, but,
You have to make some
Yeah.
discussions, yes.
okay. Thank you.
Following up on that, Christine, I don't wanna leave the impression with the public out there that we are going to abandon free and reduced lunch. You're simply talking about,
For all. Right now,
even with forms, even with the proof.
Right.
So only forms with people that qualify.
only eligible per the federal standards.
Of some sort.
Only, well, that's if, so it's a little bit two things. That while that is used for that, it's also used to calculate state at-risk dollars. It's used for two different purposes.
Right.
And because we've had the universal free breakfast and lunch, less people have thought they had to turn those forms in because, it's not related.
Right.
And so if the federal program were to go away and the state said, we can't subsidize this, we would have to go back to the way it was before. And those that turn those forms in and qualified under the federal guidelines would qualify for free reduced lunch, again, depending on federal legislation where that goes. So we're tripling our efforts to get those forms
Right.
in every way, shape, or form we can to help us for the 31A category so we can get what we are supposed to for our most needed kids, our at-risk kids, as well as for the need to make sure that we have these forms if the situation occurs where we have to rely on them for those kids to get free breakfast and lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, is that you only?
No, I was saying thumbs up. I know this is really hard for the public to follow, but it's very involved.
And I would just only add, I know I'm one of the ones who pushed for a higher fund balance, and I was one who pushed for 15. I wasn't pushing for higher. And the reason I did that was because, look, we're not even in a recession right now. The school budget fund is going up, and our fund balance is already going down, and it's fine. I'm comfortable, but I wanted it at 15 because I knew it would be going down. So if you asked me today what it would be, I would probably want it at 12 to 13% right now. So I think we're always going to be a little under where I want it to be, and that's fine. But yeah, I'm still highly concerned, and part of the reason we want that fund balance is because then we can make those risks when we don't have a budget that we can put $1 million here and we can weather out a multi-year storm versus many districts who don't have at all a fund balance right now. And as we saw last time, the numbers came in a little low and they had to make immediate and drastic cuts after school had started. And so I will still defend my high fund balance, and I do realize that it's a goal that may not be achieved, and that's fine. So.
It's better to have a little money for a rainy day than it is to have the rainy day when you have no money.
Exactly.
I can say from past history that I dealt with a fund balance of around 5%, and it was extraordinarily painful. But we couldn't necessarily cut into instruction in order to get some number that we were comfortable with, so we basically had to plug back into instructional programs or eliminating instructional programs. like
Some of the
Spanish.
ancillaries are the ones that are gonna take the hit.
So yeah, so it, again, I think the goal of the fund balance is to smooth out those times and
Yeah.
as we're seeing that, yeah, if we weren't where we were, then we would be in a whole different discussion even now, so.
But we might have an electric vehicle or two we could put on the market and see if we can get some money for that.
I don't think so.
See if we can get some money.
I think that's probably not happening, so.
Alright, so is there any other questions from the board? Okay, at this time, the board would like to invite comments from the public. Is there anyone who would like to provide public comments specific to the budget? Alright, hearing none, I declare this public hearing closed. And then we'll move on to general public comment. So I believe there is, so the board has set aside this time for public comment. And individuals addressing the board shall have one opportunity to speak and shall be limited to 3 minutes. Individuals should not make personal attacks unrelated to actions affecting the school system, and we strongly encourage common courtesy and constructive feedback. Detailed rules and procedures, including a complaint process, are outlined in board policy 0167.3. Tammy, do we have public comment?
We do. Scott Richards.
Scott Richards, Green Lake Township. I didn't move quick enough on the budget. The people I know in private schools, they can't build their classrooms fast enough. Because people wanna go to private school, they don't wanna be in TCAPS. That's personal. That's people I know in private schools. The other thing is, I wish there was more younger people in here to hear what I have to say. Jordan DeMay, look up Jordan DeMay's story in Marquette, Michigan. Family would love you to check it out. And I wonder if the demise of Jordan DeMay had anything to do with these books, Red, White, and Royal Blue, Gender Queer. These books should not be in our high school libraries. These books belong in an adult bookstore where kids can go and buy, or people over 18 years old can go and buy it if they want. This is God's holy word. This was the first textbook in American colonies, or the colonies at the time. And why is freedom of religion in the First Amendment? It's not to keep Christians from influencing public events, like in schools or county commissioner buildings. Freedom of religion was put in there because if you were in France and you weren't Catholic, you were a Protestant, the Queen could come and take your property and kick you out of the country. If you were in the Church of England and you didn't belong to the Church of England and the King didn't heard about it, he could kick you out for not being a part of that church. That's why freedom of religion's in the First Amendment. And it was God-given instruction to our founding fathers. Because our founding fathers had the chance to look at 1,700 years of history, and they know that a state-run religion was wrong for the people. They wanted the people to choose for themselves what they wanted to believe. And if we talk to our young people, what really is inside this book, that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, like it says in Psalms 139:14. I don't think our kids would be hurting so bad. Okay? Or you tell them, blessed is the fruit of the womb. That's children. You know, these kids are growing up in mixed families, maybe 1 or 2 marriages, and they're already confused. They don't need to be confused anymore. Thank you.
Mary Van Ballen.
I'll start by thanking you, and thank you for turning up your mics tonight, because I couldn't really hear all of you speaking, and it's so much more interesting when I can hear you. My concern is around as you make your strategic plan, I would like it to be actually uncomfortably bold, so that 5 years from now, we can say, look what we gained in this achievement gap between kids who are in low-income families and kids who are in financially comfortable families. And that achievement has so much impact on the whole rest of their lives. And if we can just set some measurable goal, this is what we're gonna shoot for, and we're gonna get there. There are a lot of people in the community that are so willing to help. And it isn't like we're asking you to do this alone, because a lot of us who are retired from education still have lots of passion and time to offer. So I just hope that we can set measurable goals so we can see that achievement gap really shrink and all kids getting what they need. Thank you, thank you.
Bill Wiesner?
Bill Wiesner, Traverse City, and just to go along with what Scott said, freedom of religion, or separation of church and state, exactly, it was to protect the church from the state. It was Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to the Danbury Baptists saying, don't worry, we're not going to take away your freedom of religion. That's not going to be taken away. They met for church in the Congress building when they first started. So it's just corrupt judges, basically in the 40s, changed the law to make everybody think that it was that way. But look up Danbury Baptist, Thomas Jefferson, and you'll see. This handout that I've given is tcfamily.org message to Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. One person, one ballot, one vote, one day. That's what this sign says, one person, one ballot, one vote, one day. I take it to Leelanau County every meeting they have, and no fraud. That's what we need, and the elections cannot be trusted. And just for a matter of this no fraud, I think it's fraud. For people, librarians, whoever, to say stop the book banning when there's 500 books in the TC West High School and almost that many in TC Central, and not one book presenting the other side. Now that's fraud. And as far as presenting comprehensive sex ed as something protecting the children, that's fraud too. You're grooming children. And as far as having pornographic books in the library, which you have many of them, there's a list on my website listing them and many more, and that's fraud too, to say that those books should be in with these kids. It's just corrupting anyone that reads them. It's corrupting information. This handout, the elections, basically look at what Hillary Clinton said. We need to look at the voting machines. Too many of them are linked to the internet. Kamala Harris, before our eyes, elections were hacked. And some of the election system vendors have required states to sign agreements that prevent or inhibit independent security testing. Yes, they all have. You can't have independence because it's their priority rights. No way, not for our elections. So I encourage you to check out this information. Look at Gateway Pundit and look at the Lindell trial. They're trying to push that through too. Thank you. That's fraudulent.
That's the end of it.
Thank you. Next next item is superintendent's report, deferring to Dr. Lowry.
Okay, I'm gonna keep the legislative update brief. You've heard a lot from the state from this standpoint. Federally, the only thing I'll say at this point is a lot of worry about Medicaid dollars. That is the big thing that a lot of our schools, even our health clinic, our intermediate school district, I know they're worried about approximately $3 million in Medicaid funds that they receive. So that is the biggest, and then the kind of question is if the bill that's currently in the US Senate were to go through, what does that mean with the title funds? Title I is one that is in special ed is said would be sent to the states in block grants. But a lot of questions of the rest of all title funds, including McKinney-Vento, would be wrapped up into the one block grant. So there's lots of worry about the sustained funding of all of the title funds outside especially of Title I and IDA special ed funds. So keeping an eye on that. And then as I mentioned in the state, we're hearing a bill will drop this week. We heard it last week on the House side. We'll see, once we see that, we'll keep you updated on that. So that's really it for legislative. Any questions on that at all?
Just a quick question. If they come in as block grants, do they go, who decides
It
how
goes
to
to the
divide
state and it goes to the legislature to appropriate.
So it's the legislature that
And
basically.
through the Michigan Department of Education. And essentially, that's how it's done now, but it's done in those specific categoricals of Title I, Title II, Title III through Title V. McKinney-Vento is separate, and that's all allocated separately versus the block from that
So
standpoint.
it'll basically be a bigger block with less restriction from the
But
feds?
also, it could have less money as well, and then, it'll be, so the state can appropriate it differently. So for instance, they could say it's all going to Title I, none to McKinney-Vento. Or all Title I, no Title II teacher training. Like they would have carte blanche ability to say whatever is done with that block.
The feds would, if they.
No, the states
they
would.
Okay.
So lots there.
Dr. Van Wagner, I just want to say thank you for your persistent efforts to advocate for public education funding. I don't know how many boards in the state are fortunate to have a superintendent who has his eyes on the prize all the time, year in, year out, year round, going to Mackinac, talking to legislators as routinely as you do. So
I
thank you.
appreciate that. Great team that keeps following it. Wes and I get to sit back and debate what's best and this and that and of what it is. So great team, great people. And, it's just we're fighting for every kid, especially up north. That we get our fair share as well, and so appreciate that, and gonna continue to do everything we can to get our kids every dollar we can, so. The district highlights, great things going on in the district. We had our graduation and honors convocations. TC High held their graduation ceremony on Friday the 30th. Overall had 65 students graduate this year. That is a phenomenal number. I'm excited to see our graduation rate after this for next year. But Jen, all of her team at TC High, wonderful job, as well as at TC Central and TC West. We had their graduation ceremony Sunday, June 1st. Top notch, everybody, fabulous job as always. Just really, really proud of the quality of ceremony that matches the quality of education that our seniors have been provided. So thank you to everybody. And congratulations to the class of 2025.
Yeah.
The East Middle School Digital Media Program has officially been awarded the coveted Spartan Award from the Michigan Interscholastic Press Association for their broadcast news program, Trojan TV. This is the highest honor MIPA awards in its broadcast critique. And I do believe one of the only middle schools that have received the award in the state. So again, Jody Mackey does a wonderful job there. Congratulations to her and all the students in that program at East Middle School. The West Senior High Occidentalist newspaper received a Spartan Award from the MIPA as well, the highest honor awarded to student publications. Many student journalists also received individual MIPA awards. That's great if you get to see the Black and Gold Quarterly at Central, you see the Occidentalist at West. I mean, great student products in journalism. So again, congratulations to all the kids there over at West that received those awards. Catherine Wooden's first grade class at Blair published a book that was released on May 15th. The book is all about all the science projects the students did in class throughout the year. The students celebrated with an author party. The Amazing Shake concluded today, offering Traverse Heights fifth graders a valuable opportunity to connect with the community. Students honed their interview skills, practiced handshakes, posture, and manners. On June 3rd, all the fifth graders participated in the first round of interviews with local volunteers. 6 students advanced to the second round on June 5th and participated in a secret walking field trip to Potters to surprise staff with admiration and appreciation. Today, 2 finalists were interviewed by myself and Traverse City City Mayor Amy Shamero to determine our Road Runner of the Year. A special thank goes out to the fifth grade teachers, Mrs. Cobb, Mrs. Orr, Mrs. Mullen, the school social worker, Mrs. Ebenhouse, and librarian Ms. Sabo, and all the volunteers for another successful event. So this is year 5. It gets tougher every year. 2 great students that we interviewed today. Just always amazed at how well and how excited they are to represent that school. Today was interesting. We had both talked about how well they love the house system, and the one was I believe a Michigan house, and I think the other one was Lake Superior. Again, what that staff has done with that PBIS system, every year we do those interviews, the number one kids talk about is the house PBIS system that they've instituted there. So kudos to that staff, great kids, 2 great finalists, and we congratulate them both.
Good principal, good staff.
Overall, just great leadership. Brian K's done a wonderful job, and again, all the teachers and staff over there. And then a lot of athletic things going on and finishing up. Central High Lorelei Zielinski, she's a sophomore, and she won the state championship in both shot put and in discus.
Oh my God.
By a lot.
It's incredible.
She is
Like 15 feet by one of them?
It was unbelievable, yeah. And then 3 foot in the shot put. I mean, unreal. I mean, literally, maybe, no pressure, but Olympic kind of quality that
She's the Thomas Brady.
Yeah, there you go. And West Senior High Girls Track won the MHSA Regional. Great showing by our girls team at West Senior High and the boys at West Senior High. They won the district baseball championship, as I do believe our Central High School softball team did as well. They lost this past weekend, so I know that our West boys and our Central High School girls softball again, kept great seasons, and congratulations to them. Asher Paul, Central High School, was all state in the pole vault. Central High, the 4x1 group of Carter Glee, Elijah Trombley, Scott Goodwin, and Asher Paul won all state in the 4x1. And then Central High's Quinn Gerber, as a junior, was 3rd team all state in girls lacrosse. And so great opportunities. So I think at this point I think the seasons are done. Just wonderful opportunities for all of our kids, and so many activities and clubs and everything. So great year. Enjoyed going seeing so many of the kids and all their activities, and we're finishing up with a day and a half left of school. So Wednesday's a half day, our last day. It'll be exciting to see our kids in celebratory on the last day on Wednesday. So that's what I have for today.
Okay, any questions on either? Hearing none, we'll move on to board committee reports and discussion items. First up, board curriculum committee on May 27th, reporting out by Trustee Ballinger.
Okay, so we, first of all, were blessed with the presence of Sarah Bajeris. This was her first curriculum committee meeting. I was joined by Beth Pack as another committee member. We had 2 public commenters, which is a big deal. We don't get them very often at the committee level, so we're always overjoyed. And procedural items, we approved the minutes, no changes. The district course catalog being so close to the end of the year, we had no changes, no surprises there. As you probably know, our curriculum committees have a learning series that was started by Heidi Maltby-Skodak about a year and a half or 2 years ago, basically to educate the members of the curriculum committee on various aspects of curriculum and instruction. So this particular month, we actually had 2 topics, which I don't think I've seen before. So Jesse Houghton and Dan Tisworth led us through 2 topics. The first was professional development plans for this next year. So among other things, I'll just touch on the highlights or key takeaways to me. Jesse talked about how, we're really going for evidence-based professional development for our teachers that supports our district goals and priorities. And they enlisted, I think, additional input from the TCEA leaders, specifically Chandra Fless and Ben Zenner, who were at the table, the board table with us for the meeting, and they talked about how, as from their teacher perspective, the importance of focused and long-lasting, relevant professional development, not bright, shiny new objects, but things that are really going to have lasting impact. So they just basically gave some examples of what they're planning for this next year. There will be 3 professional development days in August, which is consistent with prior years, and November, a full day as well. As you all know, when we approve the new calendar for next year, we're gonna have 9 early release days. No half days next year except for the last day of school. And what, one of the key findings that Dan Tisler shared was that teachers really prefer professional development during a workday, not extra hours after school. So using those 9 early release days will be beneficial for the district to have employees more engaged and fresh in the learning. Another thing is that the state does require a minimum of 30 hours per year for professional development. TCAPS is exceeding that amount with those days as I outlined. In addition, all of our buildings have at least monthly meetings. At the elementary level, it's once a month. At the middle school and high school levels, it's twice a month. So they do some additional building level focused professional development in those pockets of time throughout the entire school year. So that was really a wrap on the professional development plans for next year. And then the second topic was about virtual learning and their plans for next year. So I'm gonna start from the elementary level, which hasn't gotten attention in a few years. During COVID, of course, we had to roll out Lincoln Learning. We had lots of kids throughout the district who were learning remotely, even when we went back to school with masks. So, now 4 years later, 5 years later, we've only had 6 kids at the elementary school level in remote learning. It's not heavily promoted. I think there's a collective concern that, we really wanna have as many kids in person for learning as possible. But at least we're able to reach those families who might have unusual circumstances, heavily competitive sports, for example, where the parents are traveling a lot. So we do have that opportunity for elementary school kids. There may be future growth opportunities down the road, but the big news flash, I guess, is the middle school virtual learning that's gonna be unrolled this next year. I think others have hinted at this. So the plan is for East Middle School to host some space and use Accelis as the virtual training platform. That was something that TCAPS picked about a year ago. It's what we're using at the high school level with the Compass Learning Center at TC High School. And that's been piloted this last year with the high school kids, so that's what's gonna be rolled out at East Middle School for middle school students. This is going to be located on the east side, but it is open to all kids district-wide. In terms of transportation, the district has identified that Beta buses are able to provide the necessary transportation for kids to come check in with their mentor or teachers, occasionally or as needed. So that fixes the transportation problem by and large. The capacity is planned for a minimum of 10 kids to start the year, but they have one teacher who's gonna be dedicated full-time, and she will be able to teach up to 40 students. And then we got into the high school virtual learning this last year. So again, Jen Cholik did describe that at the beginning of the year, the Compass Learning Center started with 17 students fully online, and they had 162 by the end of the year. So if the middle school is anything like that, it'll exceed, the modest initial expectations. On that note, with TC High, they had, like, just breaking down the students who were in person or hybrid, about 115, having all in person or a few virtual and in-person classes, and then the 162 were fully online. That did help us increase graduation rates this year. So as you guys have probably remembered, we've had like 24 to 36 graduates in last year's, I think the last 4 years that we've been on the board. And it was 65 students who graduated this year. So that was definitely helped by the Compass Learning Center. And TC High's enrollment overall more than doubled. It was 130 students in 2023 to 2024. Now, this last year, we were at 270, and 43 of those were brand new students to our district. So, with that, we again, honored all the celebrations and successes that Dr. Van Wagner just hinted at, and we adjourned at 9:57 a.m. Our next board curriculum committee meeting will be Tuesday, July 8th at 8:30 a.m. in this building.
All right, thanks.
I thought it was a great meeting, and I'm not on curriculum, but I still learn, so thank you. So I don't think it's just for the committee, but they did a phenomenal job. I just want to make a few comments that all virtual learners also take state assessments, which I think is great that we hold all kids to the same standards. And I look forward to, I love graduation rates going up, but I'd love to see some outcomes in the next strategic plan as it helps to guide our decisions with summative data. And that we receive the full foundational amount, $10,000 per student for virtual learning. And I believe the formula is 40-1, correct?
That would be correct for a teacher from that. And some we have spread out, we do have some other staff that are working with kids as well that we have in that center.
And they go through the same mission-based budgeting with
Correct.
Traverse City High and
Correct.
East Middle School.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just correction, we hope it's 10,000 for this next year. It's been in the 96-20 range this year.
And I mean, Trustee Schmidt, I completely agree with you about we have to keep our eyes on the quality of education, and it's not all about numbers and dollars. We all want kids to get a good education, quality education, and to graduate, so.
I will say, since we switched to Acellus from my point of view, which is not to do the educational side, it's just from a pure, how do I interact with the student, and it's phenomenally better of tracking. I can see what they're, how it's working, what they're doing, where it's going wrong pretty easily with a touch of a button, where always it was a battle to figure it out in your own system. So
The one we had during COVID.
it is shockingly better from, again, at least a monitoring point of view from a parent. So, and the students that I've heard have said it is better. Some have also used the previous system and said that it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I assume it's integrated with Power School, just like in-person students, or
A
not?
little different. I mean, we still have to keep dual systems. There's not many that, do that from that standpoint.
Okay,
You will see it does get uploaded.
Eventually.
It's not like you have a separate login, which is, to be honest, quite advanced on
Okay.
anything else.
all right, good to know, yeah. Thank you.
Happily give a demo after. I was actually very impressed, so
I'll sign up.
I think it's gonna be a long meeting tonight, so.
yeah, maybe not.
Take a rain check on that one.
Scott.
Yep, Board Finance Committee report out, Trustee Hardy.
Well, I can accelerate the meeting a little bit. We met Thursday, May 29th at 8:15 in the morning here. We went through a number of procedural items and then also approved a grant request to Rotary Charities for $20,000. Whether we get the full 20 or not, is still open to debate. But in order to deal with our district foundation and some coaching for that process. We also approved 2 technology grants that are on consent. Then we went into transportation update from Tyson Birch, who did a wonderful job sort of explaining the myriad of issues we deal with and personnel we deal with and miles we deal with in the world of transportation. Got an update on capital projects. The Sustainability Committee reported out through Dr. Van Wagner. And then Christine did a budget update for us, which is starting to be a regular occurrence that we get whatever was reported within the last hour and we talk about it. Talked about upcoming district purchases and the meeting was adjourned at 9:41.
All right. And we came into our meeting at 9:49 of the executive committee right after we were waiting your conclusion, and it was a quicker meeting. We did the procedural items, and on HR side, there was a retirement party later that afternoon, celebrating our teachers, but we do have offers out to 19 new teachers at the time. One issue, or I wouldn't say an issue, but one opening that was still being worked on is special education, always on the list, but apparently better than
Filled today.
Well, today.
Wow.
Good job.
I think that's the first time, I mean, it may change, I'm sure, tomorrow, but the first time that I remember that actually being in that spot this early, so let's hope that that continues. So fantastic news on hiring and getting ahead of it. So we are conducting, there was interviews still going on for the elementary positions and assistant administrator position for West Middle.
Also, all elementary filled.
Okay, all right, so really,
Congratulations.
yeah. So phenomenal news on hiring, and that was it. So you pretty much covered everything and updated it there as well. So we moved on to communications, and the big item was Sunshine Bus, which the program, I am gonna read the schedule because I do think it's important. I think it's a critical component of what we do. So in the summer, we have a Sunshine Bus that goes around every week except for the week of July 4th, and basically provides essential supplies to anyone who needs it. And the route this week, actually, Ginger, do you know the days by any chance? I don't think actually meeting, it just says the schedule, but if you wanted to provide it, if you don't have it, that's fine, there will be communication going out. It's okay. I thought I had it on me, so I didn't mean to put you on the spot, so.
Well, I could give it to you in about 15 seconds.
Okay.
I'm just gonna bring it up.
And again, since I said how
So-
excited I was to have it.
Yep, no, it's good.
While we're waiting for Ginger, I met with Candace Hamill, the ED of Father Fred, who helps make this bus go. So thank you to Father Fred and Candace. They put a lot of resources into this for our kids furthest from opportunity.
So we do have our schedule beginning the week of June 16, going through August 25. Again, no service the week of July 4th. On Wednesday from 12:30 to 1:30, we will be at Trade Winds Terrace Apartments, followed at 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock at Traverse Heights Elementary School. On Thursdays at 11:45 until 12:15, we will be at Meadow Lanes Mobile Home Park, 12:40 to 1:40 at the Interlochen Plaza, and 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock at Blair Elementary School. On Fridays from 11:45 until 12:15, we will be at Kings Court Mobile Home Park, 12:45 to 1:30, the corner of Zimmerman Road and Agate Way. And then 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock, Silver Shores Mobile Home Park. Again, if there's anyone who cannot reach these services, they can call the Student Support Network and we will find an alternate plan to make it work for them.
Awesome, thank you, and so the amazing service, and thank you for all the effort that you put into it and all the other staff here as well. That was it. The next executive committee meeting will be held on July 10th at the regular 4 p.m. slot. So that was that, and I will continue on report out on board office hours. We had a virtual meeting on May 22nd. It was me and Bill had it was a good talk. We talked for an hour. It was just us two. We were both hoping, I think, that we would have more guests, but we took the time that we had. And the next meeting is June 26th. That is an in-person meeting at the Traverse Area District Library. In attendance is Trustee Ballinger. So that's June 26th, 6 to 7, Trustee Ballinger in attendance at the Traverse Area District Library. Moving on to consent. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
I think I do need do I need it read out? I think I do on the, there's a recommended motion in the packet if I could get that.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent calendar as presented and without discussion.
Second, anyone?
I'll second it.
Alright, thank you. Gun shy did I hear? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to discussion, school safety update, deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, so tonight, I'm gonna have Ginger give an update on our Safe Route to Schools grant and also looking for a little direction. Boards, I've had various board members discuss with me about the Frankie Road crossing near Montessori. And so that's what the efforts have been towards the Safe Route to Schools grant that Ginger's been working on. I've also asked Christine to be able to give you an update of numbers of what, we're looking at for the cost for what would be done across there. Reminder, bond dollars cannot be spent on it per our conversations with Troon. So we're just trying to get some direction on staying the course or what the board might wanna try and start conversations further with Meyer and the township and other entities. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Ginger give you an update where we're at and then we can go from there.
Thank you. First, I just want to say a huge shout out to all the volunteers who did help us perform all of the audits. We had a great number of volunteers that made the work involving an audit a little bit more feasible, as each location requires photos to go along with the data. So it's pretty much 2 people for every location. We did have 2 days that we had 3 locations that we did count for all bicyclists and pedestrians. The first was at this Frankie Road location by the Meyer parking lot. The second being at the Buffalo Trail off of the bus route behind West Middle School, and also at the entrance of that location right there by the back entry and also next to the water park there. The idea is to determine where the pedestrian traffic is and is not coming from, to try to figure out exactly what the missing pieces are to provide safe access to West Middle School. And without any doubt, the largest amount of data I received was referring to that Frankie Road location. My location notes for that numbered 3 pages, whereas the other locations, all of the comments were on 1 page. There was also indications of issues relating to lack of ADA accessibility along Frankie Road. So it wasn't all just a matter of that crossing, but that was certainly the top concern. And then in addition to the ADA access to sidewalks, the other concern was the intersection at Silver Lake, West Silver Lake Road and Frankie Road. Though I'm not really sure what type of, no one had any great answers as to what they would recommend for that location. There was definitely a lot of ideas brought forward regarding the location by Montessori crossing over to Meyer. One thing that is of interest to point out is that the parking lot for Meyer versus Meyer itself is on a divided property. So the city is where the Meyer store proper is located, whereas the parking lot is, oh no, I have that backwards. The township is where Meyer sits, whereas their parking lot is the city. So we do have to make sure that with all of the conversations that we have, that we're not involving or taking into consideration just the thoughts of Meyer and the township, but also the township, Meyer, and the city. So that was one thing that I was not aware of before was how that property line goes right through their parking lot. So, and the location we have for that is definitely city.
Ginger, may I just ask the question? So the parking lot's relevant, but how is the building, Meyer building relevant for safe routes to school?
Because we keep, well, just, it's not necessarily, other than the fact that I assumed that the Meyer property was on the same plan and township as the school, and it is not, so it was
Do we have
just.
to deal with the township because of the Meyer building? Isn't
Well,
it just
West
the
Middle
lot?
School is Garfield Township.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So that's new, so we'll have to dig into that a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's written for the West Middle School. So,
Yep.
yeah, so anyway, it's just a little added detail, but I did wanna point that out because it is something that we will have to consider as we move forward. In terms of next steps, I have compiled all of the data that I received. I'm attaching all of the photos to a little interactive map. Any further comments that the volunteers have, they have through Wednesday, end of day Wednesday, to provide any final words to me, and then I do submit that Wednesday at the end of the day to the Safe Routes to School office. Thus far, they were very happy with all the information that, and planning that we did for the audit. And we did have the green light to continue moving forward with that. Next steps would include, after we submit the audit findings, developing an action plan along with all of the entities that would be involved. And that would also include securing financial fiduciary commitment from the County Road Commission, securing an engineering timeline, and then confirming and planning support with the County Road Commission, Garfield Township, and the city. Once all of that is complete, we turn all of that documentation over once again to Safe Routes to School and await their decision.
Okay.
and what's the timeline for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to me, I keep questioning their timeline because to me it seems like, well, we can wrap this up and get this submitted pretty quickly. However, they tend to be a little bit more on the side of caution with their timeline, and they feel as though by the time we would know anything, it would likely be spring.
2026. Yeah.
Correct.
Is there a specific deadline we need to meet?
All of our documentation would need to be submitted by November, which is really not a problem since we are, other than submitting the fiduciary agreement, you know, we don't have a lot remaining to submit other than this action plan and the agreements with all of the entities, so.
Nope, that was, any other questions on that? I know that, I think there is obviously concern about our timeline, but I don't know where everyone feels.
Yeah, I guess I don't know exactly what's on the line with the organization Safe Routes to School. I mean, are there various, whatever, you know, documentation you submit, are there various possible outcomes, you know, different scenarios that they would, you know, award the district and fund it? You know, I don't even know what our options are at this point, and maybe this is premature to even ask.
So the recommendation that we put forward is what we would be asking the funding to go to, which I believe is why it's pretty important, as Dr. Van Wagner asked tonight, for us to ensure that we all agree as to what our ask is. And so therefore, if we are looking at that bump out area as a crossing, is everyone okay with the timeline being that we have a little bit of a wait before this can be done, knowing that construction in the winter is generally not likely. So otherwise, if we consider putting our eggs into a different basket, so to speak, with a different location ask for this $300,000 that would change our grant ask. And would maybe back us into renewing some of our audit work prior to the submission. So we just want to ensure that we are confident in our ask so that we can move forward.
Do you have like a map, a layout of what you think would be the ask? And then would it be 300,000 in either, whichever way you laid out the?
300,000 is the max that you can ask for, so that would be our ask. And the map that you're referring to, what it is it's just a stop, like a bus stop for the beta bus, so to speak, that and like a bump out area which would naturally slow down traffic. Whether or not a light is involved, kind of like what you see on the parkway.
Blinking sort of?
So I'd like Christine, I've given her some thoughts on what the group talked about, that we've talked with that and given an idea. So Christine, could you talk to us a little bit about that?
So the very cheapest option is right at the sidewalk at Montessori, where we did add some concrete for a beta bus stop. That is all ready to go and ADA accessible. You would have to build out on the Meyer property a landing point for ADA access. So currently it is a curb and grass. We would have to cut into that and actually create a landing pad that's ADA accessible with a ramp going down to the parking lot. You could do either electrified or solar power push button stations, and that was estimated to be a minimum of $106,000. Without very much detail, it was a high level overview. And obviously we would need Meyer's permission to build on their property.
So as we've talked to Meyer previously, Scott was able to get us in with Meyer's legal counsel. And they verbally, we still don't really have anything in writing. We really need to, the next step of the Safe Route to Schools is to re-engage everybody. But they said they would participate in a Safe Route to Schools grant with all the entities at the table. So that's what we've been working under. If we were to look at something different, we would have to re-engage them and see where they're at. Again, with that being their property, we can't use bond dollars on anything that's not our property. So this is kind of where it sets to see if the board's comfortable and us keep going. If the board's like wants to go a different route. That's kind of the feedback that we were looking for before we keep moving forward.
Would we still have a volunteer or someone like that directing traffic there?
You really can't have volunteer. I mean, there's a liability there.
You'd have to hire an employee.
Yes.
Just Interlochen, I mean, when you cross Joe Manny Parkway, there's the person with and they will they walk into the street with you and then they walk back.
It's probably their employee.
Yeah.
It would be a summer
Yeah, but they're an employee.
job.
They're an employee though. versus
I
a
believe they
volunteer.
were security, they were marked
Yeah.
as security
Yeah.
during graduation. I don't know if that's always that person, but.
Okay.
And this is as you're exiting Montessori, this would be as you turn right.
Yes, it's on the south side of the property. So it's pretty close to where the concrete sign is. And if you take a look at it, there's a beta bus stop sign there because we added the concrete to get from the sidewalk to the road for a beta bus.
I mean, I'll just have a couple of comments. I mean, we talked about this in January, and I guess I'm confused about what the problem is that we're trying to solve.
No problem, other than just, do we wanna continue on the path of Safe Route to Schools, or the board wanna take a
And I just
different
wanna remind
path?
my colleagues, Safe Routes to School funding has to connect kids to schools. So what we're talking about is connecting West kids to West Middle School.
Correct.
And they have to be within a 1.5 mile radius. And think about south of 14th, east of Division, that 1.5 mile radius. How are those West kids going to get to West Middle School? By foot or bike? So if that's the problem, I'm all for providing options for safe kids to walk and bike to school, obviously. It's just a hard ask. In my mind, that we're gonna have kids east of Division, south of 14th, crossing division, walking through the parking lot, having some bulb out, cars going 40 miles an hour across Frankie, no crossing guard, to then walk on the trail to West Middle School. Now, if we're trying to solve the problem with parking at Montessori, that would be a different discussion.
And again, we can't, the Safe Route to Schools grant only allows us for West Middle.
So I just wanna be clear with my colleagues what
Yeah.
problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah, but I will tell you, like, I had the chance, I sat the other day, I mean, there are kids especially that live in the Trade Winds apartments.
And I wanna help
That,
those kids, so
you
if
know,
that's what we're talking
And
about.
there's a lot walking, I saw 5 kids. One
It has to be best practice.
was throwing a couple pebbles, so
I don't know
get
if a
after
bulb
him.
out's best practice, I don't know
but, yeah.
walking through a parking lot is best practice.
There's just not a lot there, you know what I mean, the
And
way
that's
that
where,
thing
are we trying to
is,
ram a square through a circle, is my
Yeah.
question.
yeah.
I mean, technically, they could
And that's
walk
also-
around and then down the road and then cross it. Right. No,
But
no, 'cause
being
then
Those
you
are
have
also
to-
school-
you'd
You
have to-
open
go the
enrollment
shortest
students.
distance between 2 points.
Yeah, so thank you,
Geometry.
Ty, for raising this question, cause I actually thought we were trying to solve a problem at Montessori.
Well, I wanna be semantics matter here. The
Yeah.
Safe Route to Schools grant is eligible for West Middle School. It can only be, it's not eligible for a school that's not older than 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
7 years,
Okay.
okay, so just understand the semantics of qualification here. So this is a trail that goes to West Middle School that just happens to go by Montessori.
Right, but how does it fix the safety problem and the limited parking problem that we've had at Montessori for the past 2 school years and for the foreseeable future?
This has been a request we've had of a lot of people there. But
But
you
it's
know,
supplemental, I
yeah,
mean, it doesn't.
but as far as parking goes, as we look at a lot, I've talked to Christine about this, there is no more room for parking anywhere on that lot.
We do use the ancillary parking lots at West Middle School. Those were designed to be used for Montessori.
Without purchase of property, the current property we have, there's no room for expansion of any spots.
And you can't park in the street,
Yeah, right.
not like.
So this would allow us, if we keep going, at least to do some engineering, maybe look at it, maybe Meyer's willing to do a path, across, I don't know. But this is the path, we're just starting to now get to traffic, walk study was done. And then I think we can engage the township and everybody may go, no, this doesn't make sense, and that's okay. But I just need to know the board's feeling on going forward with those conversations, or is there something else you want to look at to give us direction? Because this is pretty much where we're at.
I will say that I have the same question Ty does. Sending kids, or at least endorsing a route that goes through a parking lot over Frankie Road is implying it's a safe route, and it's a misnomer in my vernacular right now. Anything that involves kids crossing Frankie Road at any time of the day, to me, makes me nervous. And if there's no other solution, including beta busing those kids to West Middle, I don't know, there's gotta be a better way than endorsing a solution that, to me, is dangerous.
Well, you can't have them cross Silver Lake.
No,
So I would like to just share, as it relates to when we built the building, just like we did with Central Grade School when we had visioning, the staff agreed to park at West Middle School,
In the athletic parking lot.
and they're not. I believe the issue we are having is that we don't have room for our customers.
So you're saying
I don't believe there's a
the
parking
majority of the
issue.
teachers agreed to park at West Middle School, which is on an incline, and then walking down a quarter mile.
It's a lighted
Sorry,
path with a camera,
I'm
that
very
is
familiar with
monitored
that
with a
path.
staff
I'm
member.
very familiar.
and we do take care of it all winter long. And a lot of our students
I
and
walk
parents
that
are using it.
path, it does get icy and slippery in winter, and I'm just saying, playing devil's advocate here, if you're a teacher, maybe you don't wanna take the risk of slipping.
We have students and parents using that as well.
I know, and I've seen them firsthand, I'm just saying, parking is the fundamental problem. So if we have Montessori parents who wanna drop off and staff who need to park all day, that footprint there at the Montessori building is too small for all. And then to ask people to park up by the West Middle School athletic fields and walk down an incline, it does add time, it does add risk. Potentially if somebody slips and fall, whose liability is that too? I mean, I know
It's our
you've thought
property.
about these.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think there's
in
some
my
answers,
mind,
but
it's no different than central grade.
You know, we've looked at adding, what is it, the stuff in the concrete that melts the snow and the ice.
Oh, the heating
Snow melt.
system,
Quarter
snow melt?
of a mile is a fair piece. But I don't know if that's as cheap as putting in $100,000 walkway over at Frankie Road.
It wouldn't be at this point because we'd have to rip over everything that we already have and redo it.
but that could maybe be a part of the Safe Harbor Schools grant.
Yeah, I'm all for going as long as it's not taking all of Ginger's time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but I just wanna be clear that we've been at this for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So she's a lot of her time and she's got a lot on her plate. So I guess I will defer to Ginger if it's, I do think this is an opportunity for us to think about how there are several teachers at Montessori that ride their bike, and how do we as a district to help incentivize them, encourage them, support them in doing that. I think we used to also have park and stroll locations. So I think it's an opportunity for us to think about, you know, how do we communicate to families about how they get to school? And I said this in January, I'll say it again, like we used to have maps about park and stroll and walk 5 minutes to class. So I think this is an opportunity to not just look at, one crossing, but holistically. And I encourage that discussion, and I was just looking at our policy around transportation, like I'd like to see that come to finance this summer.
Yeah, so I think that we'll take all those things again. There's been no, design, we're at that point kind of close of sitting with the township, sitting with the city, all that. I think all those things you just talked about can be brought into play of what is it we want to do. That's why, I've had all this feedback from board members and community, so I just wanted some direction, and I think we have some now to take back to look at what are the options that possibly could be, including especially what you just talked about. We've previously as the board, we have talked about possibly other options if there's ever any expansion options with properties that, is just always keeping an eye on, that could solve some as well. So there's multifaceted things to, I think, fix the problem, as you say, but I do think that this is one resource. Maybe not the whole resource, but as one resource for us to continue to explore. I just wanted to give that board the update and make sure that we wasn't, we were not putting a ton of time into something the board goes, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's every concern and angle is valid, so.
So I think I heard a lot, and I think that taking that back now, sitting with the township, sitting with the road commission, they are redoing Frankie Road here, not this year, but they're planning on another year. How does that fall into play?
Repaving in
Yep,
2026.
so there's a lot of things on the table there to talk about. So we'll move forward and take all those things, continue, and we'll keep you updated this summer. Kind of maybe, we'll hopefully get a meeting with all the entities and talk some more.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
There must be something in there, but yeah, I agree.
Can you all share like the survey, the results from the middle school and
Sure.
Montessori families?
We'll get that out to you.
And, like, just give us some options. This, for me, it's hard to follow, what the problem is, what the causes are, what the goals are, what the possible solutions are. And I just wanna make sure that, applying for $300,000 is gonna fix the problem and not just be 15% of the problem.
I don't think it will fix the problem, it's simply just one more way to try to
Address it.
minimize and address, and make an awareness.
But we've had all this, what Scott said, I think, Christine's brought up many times, and with, the architects and engineers. Like, but yet, while we've discouraged it, it's happening. So I think there's just further talk, further on it. I think getting together with the township and all that, more conversation, is there. I just don't know anything beyond, a crosswalk that goes over, like, I know that's super expensive, but but again, I think thinking outside the box, I think Ty has some good points about is there a different way for us to sit and think about this?
How
from
about,
that.
I'll throw one more out, and then I'll shut my mouth on this one thing. And that is, what about widening that parkway and having a guy on a golf cart go up there and say, we pick up people at these times, we'll bring you down and we'll pick you up and we'll take you out. Sort of
From
like
West Middle School.
Interlochen runs around with their little golf carts.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you think of the ferry, Shepler's Ferry. They have their parking over there and then they run a golf cart. Or a bus, as the
I
case
think it's all feasible. I think when we're talking resources, especially to instruction, that's a big resource that we don't
That
have right now,
is- That is a big one.
you know.
And I don't know that it would address if the teachers are supposed to be parking there, they're coming in at a wide variety of times and leaving at a wide variety of times. So
You
to
just-
staff somebody 2 hours prior to school, hour and a half prior to school, hour and a half afterwards.
Because you do have
Would
Montessori
be-
starts at a different time than middle school.
Oh, that's right, you have a varying
Yeah.
start time.
Well, and teachers may arrive early and leave, you know, shortly after, and some arrive, you know, at arrival time and stay for hours and hours and hours.
But if you wanna ride, this is when the ride runs. Sort of
again-
like catch an airplane.
But again, does
Right.
that solve the problem? So,
They also could utilize beta services, that's why we added a stop on that side of the road. And they added a route.
That was intended for students, wasn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
It can be for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I
Well,
think that's what we're trying to do.
That's what I'm trying
just
to.
to be
Okay.
clear,
I think we're gonna continue on the path,
think,
keep the
yeah.
board updated. I have the feedback what I was looking for tonight, so. Okay,
Alright,
Thank you, Ginger.
yeah, thank you for.
Thank you, Christine.
Alright, next discussion item, TCAPS, this current strategic plan overview.
okay, so I'm going to kind of lead this, but all the rest of the staff will chip in at different times. So the board had asked for an opportunity to get an update on where we're at, really finishing at the end of the school year here, and June 30 is really the end kind of the 3-year plan that's in effect. So what I have for you tonight, we've taken and to kind of simplify rating, you know, to put like in Scott's words is like just kind of a hard knocks where we at, you know, like with it. So as a staff, we took the liberty to go through each one and really have assigned it a red light, meaning that we just didn't make the progress at all that we would have liked to. Yellow means that we've made good progress, but we still have ways to go. We have a lot still to do, you know, encouraging, but again, just a lot of work still we think needs to be accomplished in the area. And green is one that we think we've accomplished a lot. Again, does it mean we've ended necessarily? No, but if the board's looking at something maybe that, you know, maybe isn't work that we complete, but maybe not now at the level of having it in a strategic plan, that's where we have it. So what I have is on each one, I have a few highlighted areas, and I'll probably hit a few, especially with the first one, and then kind of give you each one from there of where we felt it was rated. So if you look at 1A, continuous improvement of academic achievement to maximize student success, we felt this was a yellow. We think that we've made, putting a lot of systems in place, putting some curriculum things in place, that we've made a lot of progress from where we were when we started 3 years ago. Putting instructional rounds across the district, scope and sequence of our curriculum online. Course audits are taking place to really look at what's being taught, what's being enacted. Data review teams and systems, consistent protocol for review of math and ELA. Curriculum leadership structure in place. Creation of a portrait of a graduate of what our community wants out of our students when they walk across the stage. Instructional coaching cycles in all of our K-8 buildings. Curriculum purchases in CKLA, middle school math, and AP techs. Professional development in each content area at the regional, state, and national levels. Strengthen multi-tier systems of support, define tier 2 and tier 3 interventions that was talked about, Jesse talked a lot about earlier, in literacy, math, and behavior. Increased use of authentic interdisciplinary projects that foster critical thinking, collaboration, and real-world applications. When we talk about our TIE program at both Central and West, especially in that. Professional development for staff related to the improvement of their job. And then during COVID, you may remember, we did have some numbers of percentage increases. Again, tough time with that, but we did have a 1% and a 2% goal that Josie might remember that we did meet during that time. Again, not anything we want to say that we're striving for, but did have some goals in there we met. Also, I've asked Jessie, she's got a few slides here that we've talked about that she's going to talk about. So if you could quickly just go over those.
Yeah, so first of all, I could probably put together 100 slides for you guys of student achievement data and splice it 1,000 different ways. And I kind of went down that rabbit hole. Dr. Van Wagner kind of, put me back a little bit this weekend. But I just have 3 slides. These are really meant for high level student achievement. Each of these slides represents the 3 years of our former strategic plan. So that was intentional to sort of show you where we've been at for the last 3 years. Each of these slides talks about our state assessment data. So this is data that really addresses what are the standards of that grade level. And all students in the state of Michigan take this assessment every spring. And then, Dan and I anticipate, knowing that student achievement is gonna be hopefully one of our strategic goals for this next year, that we're really gonna look at then, so then what are some objectives underneath this? Because just saying a 2% increase means something really different depending on what grade level I'm teaching in, what building I'm teaching in. We also know that we'd like to do a goal around, or I would say an objective around, how do we close that achievement gap? So maybe we want all of our students to increase by this much, but what does that mean for some equity for some of our students that are farther away from opportunities? How do we want those students to achieve, and how should we, Dan, and we invited Brittany Kay, our curriculum director, as well here with us. How do we set some goals for those? So you're looking at, the first slide here is ELA. So our big 2 are ELA and math. That's what we measure every year, grades 3 through 11. You're looking at, I just chose 1 elementary grade level, 1 middle school grade level, and 1 high school grade level. Those are actually 3 different state assessments. So 3rd grade is MSTEP, 8th grade is PSAT, and then 11th grade is your SAT. And what I want you to notice here with the ELA and the math is the variability that you see, because our sample size, so you're talking between like 700 to 800 students in each grade level, we just have some natural variability in our cohorts, right? You see some cohort years we go up by a little bit and down by a little bit. I would strongly recommend us really look at maybe then take these 3 years and plot them, and then look at the next 3 years through our next strategic plan. What's the overall trend line of all 6 years of that? Because you're gonna have variability just based on the cohort of kids. You're not talking about moving 1 kid, you're talking about moving hundreds of kids. The black line that's on here is the state student achievement. Now, I will tell you, their student achievement is very stable because their population size is 20,000 students each year. So they have less variability because that larger grab of students for the whole state. Again, we are well above the black line in all of our areas. Michigan, it struggles with student achievement nationally. I don't think that's a secret for anyone. And our kids in our districts do much better. The other thing I'll say is, if you flip to the math slide, Tammy, I did change the y-axis. Dan pointed that out to me this morning. That was intentional, because math and ELA have different cut scores and different proficiency. So sometimes you hear people say, how come we can achieve 70-some% in ELA and only 52% in math? It's not like apples to apples, it's apples to oranges. The math cut scores for the SAT and for the PSAT are actually significantly higher than ELA. There's lots of reasons why. Math is also a heavily skill-based curriculum. We talk a lot in math about coherence, a lot of vertical alignment, where ELA, you don't hear that as much. It's not quite as emphasized. So just so you know, the SAT proficiency in the state was 30%, and then 31%, 30%, and this last year was 28% last spring. This is all a year old, I don't have spring 2025 data. I actually do have MSTEP, but I can't tell you about it because it's embargoed, but we don't have PSAT or SAT. Those are coming in the next few weeks.
Do we ask questions, or do you wanna wait?
No, go for it.
That's everything.
All of the scores that you're reporting for 3rd grade would be MSTEP scores?
Correct.
Hypothetically, if you merge those, I know you can't do it because it's apples and oranges, but NWEA, if those scores, would you see a similar trend progression on those?
So this is where I went down my spiral of 100 data slides this weekend, and I was, Dr. Van Wagner very much humors me on a Sunday.
So I think
when
the
I'm
answer is
texting him.
no.
No, you can't, they don't correlate one-to-one. Because NWA is a nationally normed test, it's very different, right? As much as we love NWA for a lot of different reasons, the answer really is MSTEP assesses grade level content standards, where NWA will move up and down based on what it's more responsive to students than those are. So they don't correlate one-to-one, no, Scott.
So one's not more predictable, reliable than the other.
They both have different reasons in which we like using them. They tell us different data points. I would tell you overall, when you see a cohort go up, you'll see it go up on the other one, but it is not a one-to-one correlation. No.
It's my wish in my career that we had benchmark assessments that were aligned to the state assessment. You know, that we had, that we knew that we know would be reliable and valid, is my wish somehow.
Isn't that the intention of MSTEP?
But it never was. It was never created for that, actually.
Okay.
But that is, you know, so we're using different products paid for by the state to measure two different things, and it's our problem. So, you know, it's interesting. There are some states starting to have that way. I shared an article with you about Mississippi. You know, I'm really starting to dig into a lot of this, especially with the third grade, really interested in that. And so, you know, they're headed that way with it. And then they've narrowed the scope of their standards, so teachers know exactly what standards are being tested. Kids get practice tests based off that same, and they get to take the test up to 3 times in that state. So, yeah, so anyway, I don't wanna take a ton, we've got a long way to go with all this, but just an update on that, so that just gives you, again, we've made some progress, a lot more progress to make. The board has, I think, made it very clear to wanna look at especially achievement gaps with our subgroup, especially our economically disadvantaged, and I think that's a conversation for when we start Monday.
Jesse, just quickly, to your point about the fluctuation from year to year, I'm sure you looked at 5-year trends for each of these.
I did. I showed you 3 because the former strategic plan was 3
Yeah.
years. That was my intentionality, but yes, yeah.
But when you add on 2 more years or 3 more years, whatever, like, did you see this, or did you see more of a?
You don't see a clear trend line. I think if I could say, gosh, we were really successful from a district level, you would see, you know, that where you'd have some variability due to cohorts, but overall your trend line would have a positive slope, right?
There
Yeah.
wouldn't be a dip from year to year.
Yeah, and it's not just your last year minus your first year, it's what the trend line overall looks like, right? I'll be honest, and Ty, this kind of addresses your question about how do we staff based on student achievement. Math is I love math, I don't think that's a secret, anyone who knows me. Math is a huge concern. I think, gosh, we can't have 50% of our kids hit benchmark, and that's one of our secondary math goals. We have taken one of our math teachers to secondary, and we're providing her some time to do some math-specific instructional coaching next year. We're using some funds to do that. In addition, our PD that we're bringing in is someone who's got credibility and research behind them to help us get kids more engaged in math. What are those tasks look like? How do we get kids on task faster? How do we keep them on task longer? How do we do some of that in our secondary math classrooms?
I'm happy to hear that, you know, and I think, you know, because we only have certain levers. One of those levers is the budget, you know, and I want to hear that, you know, that 57% of our general funds that we're using state assessment and achievement scores to drive, because, you know, and if you talk about the economically disadvantaged kids, 8th grade math is 20% proficient.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to hear that we're doing that, and if ever comes a time that we're not achieving, like for this next strategic plan, where we're not achieving whatever it is that we set to, that we want to achieve, I think it will be on us to look at that 57, 58, 59% to the classroom.
And I think you're gonna hear a lot about ELA and math. I mean, part of the reason why we have Brittany Kay on our team is her background expertise is in ELA and early literacy. And she's done a great job with this CKLA adoption and helping support our teachers and figuring out how do we narrow the focus and support through all of those obstacles,
So, a lot more to do. Again, celebrate what we've done, but a long way to go still. Okay.
Then the last slide for just data is graduation rates. So the state gives us 4, 5, and 6 years. I just simplified it down for you to see what the 4 years, so that's graduating We call that on-time graduation with your cohort. We have of those additional 2 years to capture students. Dr. Van Wagner asked me to sort of talk to the lead principals about where do I anticipate this year's being. I think we're gonna be in the low 90s on our 4-year, and also our 6-year is gonna go up to, based a lot on what we've done at TC High with the virtual, with making it more accessible, with pulling back some kids who just walked away within a couple classes and re-engaging them. So I'm optimistic about where those are at too, so.
Let me ask you a question. You're probably tired of hearing this from me, but when we talk about the M step and we talk about proficiency, and we talk about even the accelerated districts in the state being somewhere in the mid-60s if they're doing well, and yet we're graduating 88%. How do I explain that gap between that 66% and 100% proficient? In other words, that's a gap I'm worried about. I don't understand, either the test is a bad test, or it's using a bad rubric. I don't understand.
But graduation doesn't mean that you've met a certain level of like proficiency on a test, right? It means that you've passed the courses in the whole menu of the Michigan Merit curriculum, right? You don't need a certain SAT score to graduate. It's not like that, right? And
Understand that.
and so I would say there are kids that graduate who didn't hit the college readiness benchmarks. Okay, that doesn't mean they're not prepared for post-secondary and they're not set up with the skills and the skills to be successful and a plan to do so. Some of those kids don't hit the college readiness and still go on to college and are successful too, right? So
Yeah, it's just, it's a dichotomy to me that I can't explain.
I 100% understand what you're saying, and I think it goes back to a question I asked a couple years ago, which is how do we define real success?
Yeah.
What are we really shooting for here? Are we shooting for test scores? Are we shooting for graduate? We have to really think about what we're looking at. Teaching a kid how to answer to a test, and you throw them a curveball in life, and you really don't have a kid that's ready for that.
Sure, and I think there's a philosophical thing, it's funny you say that I think we are going to have to continue to grapple with. You know, how important is the profile of a graduate of those things for a kid to walk out? You know, I'll tell you, just honestly, there are kids that you're going to have going as juniors that go, I'm going into a career and stuff that I don't need to do that, and it's A, B, C, D on the test.
Right, I
I have no interest in doing that, but I'm gonna go and be a great student at the Career Center and do exactly what I wanna do.
And that
You
goes
know.
into student
Yeah.
engagement.
Yeah. Yeah.
It goes into
You know,
engagement though.
But I think we have a responsibility to do everything we can to try and get that there, and also recognize that we graduate kids that are going to be successful still, yet regardless if they maybe didn't meet that mark. And
In different
mine's just a
levels
question
of
about
success.
tests, about scores. I'm not.
Yeah.
And I will say, we have about 2% of our population every year that doesn't earn a diploma. I'm gonna say the word intentionally because those are students on IEPs and we can service those, the state can service those students with a certificate of completion up to 26. So when I look at that, I'm not actually looking for 100%, I'm looking for as close to 95% as possible because the best plan for those students is actually not to earn a diploma, but to transition to Michigan Works and receive services from.
we run the only Mike High program, you know, at the high school level in the region.
And depending on the size, you're talking about.
Yep, I get it. So, again, yeah, I think that lots of conversation, but just giving you the update on where we are with that one. So, 1B, develop and implement structures and systems of support to increase mental and emotional health and social well-being. This is a green. Now, I wanna preface this that have we met every mark we want? Absolutely not. Could we use more? Absolutely. It was interesting when I had my amazing shake today, one of my students, I said, what's the number one thing if you could do as a change would be I'd have a social worker for every class, the kid told me. You know, that's a 5th grader at Traverse Heights. So, you know, that just gives you an idea here of, by gosh, we haven't arrived of the support that our kids think they need.
You didn't explain your budget
You know.
to them at that point.
No, it didn't, but again, when you have a 5th grader talk about the need,
I know.
that says a lot, right? And so, but if you look at what we've been able to do, 13 additional FTE and social work and counselors over the last 3 years. Partnership with Western Michigan University to develop and grow social works within our own district. Our handle with care notifications, when police have something, they send us a message that simply says the kid's name and handle with care. So we know something happened. Provide district-wide PD on to all mental health team members and counselors and trails. Board members that are early on will might remember we had Paula Colombo, some others come and talk to us about the trails program. That's something that's been implemented. Meeting of the minds, huge, which is really kind of this, we have a group of all the different organizations now in our county, in a region, come together and how can we connect all those supports to kids. Our NMCA partnership with the students that we have of student success. Our E3 grant, as you all know, at our high school and middle school sites now. We have prepared training, developed a coordination of care team, multi-agency initiative that provides wrapped around services. So a ton done there. Misty's come on board over the last 3 years as that, a lot done. Again, I think our staff has done phenomenal in this, yet there is still so much more need to continue to try and grow. So that's where I have
Don't forget
that.
to add a bullet about the student health center, which at least half of their caseload.
And that's a
is
part of that
behavioral.
E3 grant.
Yeah, I know, I think
Yep.
it'd just be nice to call that out.
Yeah, fair enough. You just did. Any other questions on that? Okay, 1C, focus on preventing and addressing harassment and bullying to provide a safe and inclusive environment for all. This is a yellow one, and for me, it was a low yellow. We started the U of M peer-to-peer training program, okay to say presentations at each of our secondary building to promote students and parents to report issues. Bullying and harassment link publicly posted on our student parent report issues. We have the student leadership groups, our trained mentors. We have suicide prevention meetings in the fall and spring in all secondary schools. Our P2P and second step programs, again, that's that social emotional curriculum that we've done at our middle schools for that. And then elementaries as well. District Culture and Climate Committee started, restorative practices for TCEA and TCAA staff. We've had a partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, a huge one. When I came in originally, we had very few of those mentors in our schools, and that's grown leaps and bounds. Again, more to do. And acknowledgement of documents to support inclusivity for student identities. And then I'll add our reporting mechanisms are much improved. We're seeing more tracking of what's happening with it. But again, getting to the nuts and bolts of making it better, of finding ways to get our students to understand what the damage of bullying, our staff on how to address it, much more work to do in that area. K1D, identify and implement strategies regarding student behaviors to maximize student success. Again, a yellow. We've created a threat assessment process that I think is as good as anyone I've seen in the state. I think it works awesome in the way we have it. Many people notified, follow up, administrators feel supported. We have our SOR agreement with the city of Traverse City, and then we have had partnerships in provided services of community deputies on the east side and the west side that they both East Bay Township and Garfield Township have supplied at no cost to the district. We have audited building level behavior protocols to ensure alignment with best practices and consistency across the district. We've had district counselors trained in prepare, implemented trails as we've talked about as tier 2. We've had established behavior and emotional support team, the best team, to provide focus, support, and collaboration on students' behavior and social and emotional needs. As much as we've done, I can tell you the increase has been more. Everything that we can do in this area, we need to try and continue to do. Our teachers will tell you that. It's a reality. Our administrators will tell you that. We've put a lot of resources in, but still, whether it's from COVID and what that was exactly, have we seen referral numbers go down? We have. I think we've had teachers work harder to try and find ways of strategies and those things. I do think that's a lot to that referral numbers going down, yet it still would, I'm sure if we asked every teacher in the district, number one thing that they could use more support in, it'd be behaviors in the classroom.
Do we also include anything on dealing with absenteeism?
No, but we have, and we presented on that of what we're doing with, we did get the addition of the truancy officer at the ISD that we have not had, with that of working with it.
But I was kind of wondering, under which of these categories would that fall in?
It would fall within that. It would fall with that, behaviors but also academic achievement. I mean, if kids aren't in school there, so again, continuing to look at, coming out of COVID and coming to school sick and all that, a lot of people are trying to figure that out. But again, I think there's growth there for us still to learn, Beth, to try and go. 1E, provide additional resources and support for diverse learners so that all students can be successful. Again, I yellow. All students participate in age-appropriate learning opportunities that highlight the legacy of Dr. King. Curriculum now includes focused instruction and recognition of Indigenous Peoples Day with age-specific lessons that acknowledge local tribe nations and Indigenous histories and cultures. That's been widely supported by our local Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. And again, looking at the resources that we've had, grants and things that have helped with that. Review of library materials to ensure learners are represented in the books that we have. Review of curriculum materials to ensure learners are present. Creation and operation of the full virtual high school program at TCI. Giving kids that need different supports. That was a big lift, and our staff this year, much bigger than we expected it to be, but really rose to the occasion. And then also increased staffing in ELL instruction and support. We've got more work we're doing on this through this next year. Investment in instructional coaches who provide embedded support on instructional practices, differentiation, and data use. When you look at a high yield strategy, differentiated instruction is one of those things. So continuing to work on that, continuing to try and build data systems to get even better, to look at early warning signs, those things. So again, much work still to go, but some accomplished in that way.
John, when you say much work still to go, how much of this is going to be just more of the same, or are there some of these objectives you're going to reconfigure or abandon and replace with something else?
I think it's more of the same, and I think it's deeper in on some of these things than, a full abandonment. I think that, like, for instance, something that I think we're continuing to evaluate is our social and emotional curriculums that we have. We're only a couple of years in to that at our middle schools and continue to evaluate how successful are we with that. And I think at some point, we're gonna have to say, yeah, we're gaining and we're seeing through data that, or staff will say, no, it's not. We're gonna have to, is there tweaks? Is it a wholesale change? Like, we're going to have to evaluate things like that as we go through.
What do you mean by learners are present?
So working on learners are present, did you say?
Yeah.
The fourth bullet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ensure that learners are actually engaged in that material with that.
Engagement, I think, is real important. The other thing is, in combination with this, all students have a cultural background. It's not just Indigenous people that have a cultural background. And I think that is something also that gets kind of pushed aside. I did see at Blair where one of the social studies teachers, or one of the teachers, they're not social studies per se, had students talk about cultural background, even what their favorite food was, how they celebrate the holiday. And I think that is important, is acknowledging.
And that's something that I think, again, when we review our curriculum and that, when I said this, review curriculum materials to ensure learners are present. So also that our curriculum materials have students, so there are stories of people that look like them from their kind of cultural heritage background, things like that are also, when we say in that as well.
But it's even if they don't look like you, sometimes you think, well, they do that. That is really pretty cool.
I think it's important to have both.
Interesting. An anthropologic approach to man.
So did that answer your question, Scott?
It does.
Okay. Okay, 1F. Again, a yellow, assess current conditions and identify area improvements related to safety and security using the best practice to enhance a healthy, productive school. Now you could like debate this, right? We've done a ton in this area. I think for our region, we're a leader in what we've done and what we've done with the assessments, all that work. However, I can't say that I'm going to say we've arrived. I don't know how you say that about this issue. I think there's a reality we have to stay vigilant, we have to be looking at best practice, we have to be on the ball with everything that we have resources to be able to do to make sure our students are safe, our students and staff. And so lots done here. Again, I think that I commend every bit of work that our staff, the board has put a priority on this. But again, what are we doing to keep up with it? Keep assessing best practices if they're implemented, what resources are out there, and continue to try and do everything we can in this area.
You could add under ongoing updates, under vape sensors, you have Narcan in all your
We do,
schools.
and we do. That's right. Yep.
Are we convinced students take this as seriously as we do?
I think so, yeah. You know, and I'll tell you why is I think, and again, I'll let staff chime in, but you know, I'm always thankful for the amount of students that do talk to adults, notify okay to say, are using those resources that I don't know when I started my career probably would have. I do think there's some strong data that shows that students recognize when some of those things are said or whatever, that they are reporting it to adults.
And we're not opening doors for people they don't acknowledge. I mean, all of those
Yeah,
things.
you know, the
that
nice thing is we have cameras, we have alarms on a lot of doors. Again, can I say it's not? But students are talked to about it, vigilant, there's disciplinary measures, those things. You know, we're putting everything we can in to try and stop that. You know, I have a directive that we don't prop doors open in this district. You know, if it does, it's disciplinary. You know, so we've come a long ways trying to, you know, put these things in place. Again, am I gonna say we've arrived or don't have room for growth? Absolutely not. And again, we have facilities, you know, but, you know, central grade's gonna get completely redone, that's, you know, very different. But you still have 170 doors or whatever at Central High School. Like, how can we continue to look at that as we do construction and things? Like, you know, so much work we've done, but yet again, a little bit of a broken record, so much work we still can do. Okay, 2A, attract, retain, recruit and retain a diverse and robust employee workforce. We've started a grow your own program expansion with 100% tuition reimbursement for critical shortage areas. So we have some of our own staff that are TCAPS members, other members of groups that are working towards their degrees with some of these state programs to get teaching certification in areas like special ed where we really need. This gives an opportunity for them to get that tuition paid and be able to work right with us to be able to do their practicum with us and have an opportunity possibly for a job when we have an opening. We maintain a sign-on bonus program for all non-teaching positions, something we've done, special ed especially. We've had onboarding process and communication processes for guest teachers. Daily fill rate for teacher absences has improved. You know, that's an area that this year we did pretty good. You know, we have not, a few years ago, we were pulling administrators, you know, I was even going to classes here and there. And we've been fortunate this year, for the most part, we've been pretty solid with that. And then we've collaborated with our associations on contract extensions during the first year of this strategic plan. We've had ongoing interviews twice a month, strategic marketing and advertising. We've had HR on-site visits, implementation of staff recognition programs. The Compass Award, I've heard many staff board members talk about, you know, how great that's been to be able to recognize our people, as well as our, you know, our many other opportunities we've done with that. And then implementation and communication of career path opportunities at TCAPS. Again, encouraging student teaching things. So again, I think we would like to see more even diversity in our opportunities of our workforce. Finding more opportunities to find people with different backgrounds and experiences to teach. But you know, you heard today, like, to be able to place all our people right now, I think we're ahead of the ball game. Our staff is, you know, implementing, we do spark hires now, so using technology to right away put out something to be able to get a video of a potential candidate for a screener. We've put processes in place that have improved it, and you know, we're on the right track with it.
John, I just have to say, I think you have so much yellow throughout this.
Yeah.
But there are like,
again, I know.
They're like extremely different shades of yellow here, like the past two, I would
100%.
put towards green. You're never going to achieve nirvana. It's all ongoing, continuous improvement.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna say that because there's some others I think that might come up later where I would veer more towards the red. So I just wanna be balanced here and give credit where it's due because
Sure.
yeah.
I mean, how is this not green since we've hired all of our teachers all this year? So, and I think that I would prefer to see this more outcomes, and I get the outputs and the activities and actions, but
Yeah.
Can I just maybe say, from a hiring standpoint, in a good spot, but there's a teacher shortage, so might we be the same spot next year?
Yeah.
And we're gonna continue to do that. I think for our team, when we were asked to self-assess, is like, we're always gonna be working on culture. You know, always listening out there, what's going on out there, how can we continue to improve culture in a district, and that's gonna be ongoing. So it's hard to say, we've achieved, every teacher here thinks it's the best place on the entire planet to work. We're looking at data, we're looking at feedback, we're looking at where can we continue to improve. Thus the yellow, hiring and looking at culture is gonna be an ongoing forever goal.
yeah, so attracting, recruiting, and maybe retaining then, and I guess the data of
Yeah.
who's
Retaining piece,
leaving,
yeah.
right? And I guess that's from an outcomes, say, impact. I guess I mean, I love seeing all the actions, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
it's a wonderful laundry list,
Yeah.
but I mean, if this next strategic plan could focus more on outcomes, I think we'd be,
And again,
I don't know if that would
that's,
make our staff's job easier or not, but
and depending on what goals you have at
The
it.
board is gonna have to be more specific on what they mean by outcome.
and that's on us, right? We have to be.
And that is part of it.
Yeah.
Which was, for those not here, the whole point of the last strategic plan was we have not had a plan. Let's get a plan and get some of the base, because there was so like we walked out of there with like we could have had 100 goals, and so like the
Yeah, I don't wanna
guide-
get, like, outputs is a fine way to do strategic plans, I'd say outcomes is a more better way to do strategic
at
plans.
that point, like we
But
had
I
to
get
build
it,
the
like-
we had to build the
And
foundation
that's what
before we could
I mean,
build
I
the
get it, and
results.
it's great, and I appreciate this,
Yeah.
keep going.
And green could be, we're probably a little harder on ourselves. I'm at least leading this a little bit, but I'd rather, more work to do than say, hey, we're done and good, so. To be develop a 3 to 5 year facilities plan to provide optimal learning environments. Again, this is one we did go, we passed a bond last August. We also passed an operating millage again. We've got things already started, already rolling with that. And so much to, have planned again with what we had done with school safety, some of that money we had early on with doors and things. We've made leaps and bounds in our facilities as we're putting boilers in right now in different buildings across. That'll save us, $500,000 a year in general operating dollars. This is one we just felt, again, do we have more in the future to do? 100%, but this is one we felt that strong to go green.
I just wanted to add, hopefully Ty, that's the list you were looking for with the total at the bottom of what's already been approved by the board. So hopefully that.
I didn't see that, but 176, so everybody's wondering what we've approved so far or okayed with guidance with the big 3 projects, 176 of the 180.
Of 190, cause we
190,
also
so
had 10
we still have
left.
10 left over for 2018.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Isn't it actually 226 because
I don't wanna
trains.
take you
Yeah.
shopping.
I will just say, John, that last
300.
slide.
Well, that money is separate, cause it's operational dollars.
That's what I mean, is it's not
Yeah.
180, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
So I always thought the 3 to 5 year facilities plan would be something that would map out what does TCAPS want to do with all of its properties. We've got some vacant lots, we've got some unoccupied buildings that, are leased out to other entities. So to me, that.
I think that's the next rendition we've talked since we did this.
Well, anyway, I'm just,
Yeah.
I think that's what we thought at the time though.
Yeah.
That would be part of this, so like, that's where I would have thought this was yellow, not green.
I would
that's
put
what
it at green because I
would
think
too.
we've dealt with
We don't
the
have to-
most
yeah.
complicated.
We don't have to debate, I'm just saying, like, that was like just an additional piece that I
Fortunately,
was
the room I was kind of king, so I can say what it was, so. Okay,
Can I
Christine?
just add, at the time, we did discuss all the vacant buildings and the vacant properties. So there was a discussion with the board about the vacant properties and we did not list them for sale
Right.
because we know that we only get 50% of the proceeds and we had tried that before and didn't get much interest. And then we specifically had a conversation about Bertha Voss and Boardman, and Boardman was strictly to avoid costs.
Yes.
So instead of investing 3 to 6 million in Boardman, we decided to sell it and move.
Josie, to your
So-
point, I do think, you know, whether it's this strategic plan or the very first year of the next one after this, I think where you're headed is, there's gonna be a lot of questions about this building when central grade's done, Oak Park, you know, I think what population shifts happen, there's gonna be a lot. So I do think getting to that point then, but this is where we were at.
And third floor of central grade.
And third floor central.
And we need a map in here.
I'm working on it, it's a little bit more
Okay.
difficult. I am working, Larry's helping me, well, Larry's doing it with my input.
Yep.
But it's a little bit different than just a district boundary map, so we're working on it.
I believe you.
Okay, implement strategies to attract and retain students leading to sustainable enrollment. Again, not going to say we've arrived, but green with what we've done with promotion of our online programming, promotion in different advertising realms, alumni campaigns to showcase student success, participation in local events. Before this, we never did the parade, for instance. We didn't have the bus in the cherry parade, so that's something we're doing. Enrollment events across the district, community outreach with our sunshine bus, as we talked about earlier, promoting preschool programming, that, you know, we didn't have the kind of GSRP increase that we did when we started this, and promotion of K-12 advertising media campaigns. So again, more to do, more strategies to look at, but I think especially with what we've done with our online I think, you know, the increase we've seen with that and providing something now that we're the only one in the region has been a success.
One other thing maybe to add is that you're working on expanding and coordinating your PTOs.
Yep, that's
Because
true as
the
well.
parents are not mentioned in
Yep.
any of
Yep,
this.
that's a good idea.
And I just wanna, just because, I mean, it came up earlier, but the outcomes of all this work, so the first time in 7 years, we haven't lost any kids this year.
Right.
Projected.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
And that we're
So it's next
catching
year.
up some of the kids that are having a difficult time.
Absolutely. Okay, 3A, analyze and improve communication systems to establish a culture of collaboration and transparency. Felt yellow, again, we know with the data that we have of the next one that this is one that always is a challenge to try and do. But some things, we're right on the cusp. So like not gonna fall within the 3 years, but we are right now transitioning and working on developing the new website through Aptigee. Really excited about that and the work that's happening with that. We updated our district communications toolkit. We have our branding guide that's very helpful with a lot of things. We've had our Horizon newsletter to reach non-TCAPS families in the boundary with points of pride and updates. Provide ongoing training and building AAs with mass communication and website to improve communication and consistency. Again, developing social media campaigns to celebrate collaboration and awareness across the district. Developed our health expo for staff attendance on that first day. Even though we're not doing that, we do have a way that we're trying to do that with to recreate that, so more coming on that. But again, I think there's some further work that we're kind of now just getting to with this that we'll continue to do, but always more to try and work at finding communication avenues with our parents and families.
I would add Power School to that.
Yep.
Communication to parents, important.
3B, this is a red. Develop a collaborative plan for the exploration of regional enhancement millage to prioritize safety, security, and operational needs. This is something that has to go across all 5 counties. With the out of formula districts, they end up, they believe, as a loser in this. And every time I bring it up, it's just kind of crickets. I do think in the future, depending especially what happens with Medicaid and stuff, there could be a possibility of a conversation of a special ed possible increase that I think could be considered, that I think other districts have kind of nodded their head like they would welcome that conversation possibly. But as far as just a regional enhancement millage, that's kind of a carte blanche, here's cash, do what you want with it, just has not gained anything every time I've tried to bring it up across our superintendent's group.
Yeah, the special ed millage has been on the table for.
That is something I actually brought to the table that depending especially with the Medicaid possibilities, is something to maintain services we may have to consider.
Yeah.
And we would do that instead of the ISD?
No, the ISD would, so it would have to be voted in
Gotcha, got
every
Gotcha.
district within the 5-county area. It only has to pass by a majority, I think, right, Christie, majority of the students within.
Enrollment.
So we would be a big piece in that.
Mhm.
But But again, you know, you have to get enough support to put it on the ballot, so, okay. 3C, engage and collaborate with the community to address resources to district leading to student success. Again, we've developed and each shared a state of the district address. First time, last 2 years, we've done a state of the district address. Developed and posted calendar events for community ease and positive events. Established a meeting in the minds. Again, all of those collaborative groups that help students, ways of actually, for the first time, bringing them all together. If we need help for a student, how can we have an avenue to say all the different nonprofits and community and governmental entities that can help? How can we do that together? That's been new. As long as working, again, that law enforcement's been in that, courts, others, and growing connections between community partners and the student support network to improve student success. I think we all know how far our student support network has come over the last 3 years, but again, more to grow.
Have you considered adding some of the churches?
I think a lot of that falls within the student support network. Again, this is what we've done. And so like, for instance, the last donation, the big 25,000 we got for one of the churches. So I think that's where a lot of that engagement has happened within the SSN. And that's it.
So John, on that last one, because we are talking about creating a foundation
Yes.
and getting a Rotary grant to
Yep.
help launch that,
Yep.
I was surprised to see you rate that as a green. Because
Again.
there's so much more work. I mean, SSN has made.
I'm happy with it as the yellow. I just want to recognize, I think that, you know, Katie and working with Ginger and
sure.
others have done a bang up job
They have.
of where we were
Yeah.
3 years ago of that work. And I just want to acknowledge and I feel that. Do we have more to do? 100%.
I think part of that goal, if I remember correctly, was also guided at the fact that when we were talking to community partners, it was very much like, yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Record Eagle, you know, others.
And just any business
Record Eagle.
groups.
Well, they didn't have where to go. There was no foundation.
There was a lot of
Yeah.
there was a lot of
And some negative.
yeah, there was a lot of bad
Lack of
relationships,
charity.
or even just non-developed relationships, and no one wanted to do it. So like, I think that was a good target of that, was like, how do we walk around and not
Have collaborative
have to ask, like, are you a
relationships.
friend or you're not? And now it's like generally everyone's a friend. There's some who like us more than others, but everyone's generally willing to talk. So I think that was where we were trying to get to on that point, and I do think that part's great. Now taking it to where we've gone with the student support network is, I think there's a lot more to do, but I think we achieve what we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
Alright,
Is that it?
any questions? I mean, I know there's endless questions, and this is an ongoing thing, but I think a lot of it is just somewhat mute in the fact that that's an assessment of how we did, and we're obviously on to version 2 that we will have shortly, and it will be fundamentally different to version 1 for sure. But again, continue in the same path. So.
Well, I appreciate you doing it because it helps me contextualize how far we have to go when we start talking about strategic plan.
Yep, and thanks to the staff, you know, giving input, all that, you know, again, all the work to them. And all of our employees and working with kids doing that, and, you know, onward and upward.
If you know, Scott, but when we came along with the previous boards, it just left us in such a mess.
Yeah, see, I was one board prior to that. We had a great plan.
So I had to get it in there.
Spent a weekend and coming up with a mission statement.
But your influence was not on last year.
So if no other questions on that, we will move on to the next item, which is potentially a little quicker. It's a resolution to amend the 2024-2025.
Back up.
No, resolution for the Rotary.
I'm sorry, thank you. Rotary Charities Grant Resolution to vote to Dr. Van Wagner.
Again, I'll make this quick. I think you all know at this point where one requirement of applying to Rotary Charities for a grant is I do need a resolution from the board to support doing that. And as mentioned, Scott mentioned from finance, this was brought forth and agreed by finance to put forward to the board. This will allow us to apply for the grant for some consulting services that's been recommended by Secura from Rotary Charities, so I'm feeling very confident with it. But will help us down that avenue to try and get a 501c3 foundation that is technically separate from the district but closely associated, and trying to build more of our fundraising arm and philanthropy arm. And so this is the last step that I need to be able to submit that grant here in the next couple days.
So do you want a formal motion?
I do have to have a formal motion, and it is a resolution, so it will take a roll call vote.
Yep.
Who has the resolution?
It is in the packet. I think there's a printed copy around somewhere as well, if anyone needs a printed copy.
And there's not a requirement to read unless the board wants to.
I think we're good to,
I think we're good.
just to, make a motion to adopt it,
Okay,
that's good.
I'll take a motion from anyone. It doesn't have a proposed one, but I don't know if anyone can do one. I can do it too if need be.
I propose that we endorse preparing. Is that the word I want?
Endorse the resolution
Of the Rotary Charities Grant
as presented.
as presented.
Alright, I think that will get, I was going through, I think the wording, you got it written down that I think covers everything, so do I have a second on that?
Second.
Alright, thank you, and then
I
any
just wanna make a
questions?
quick comment, and I'm fine with the resolution that it is, but if in case any Rotary Charities board members are watching or listening, for them to understand what's at stake. So nearly 40% of our kids come from low income families, so that's rough, we're talking about 3,500 kids. And I think it's important to stop talking in percentages and start talking in numbers, so nearly 40% of our projected enrollment this year of 871 is nearly 3,500 kids. That's what's at stake.
Yep. Any other discussion or questions?
Should I recuse myself as part of Rotary or not?
No, unless you're not a Rotary Charity, it's a separate entity.
I know this.
Yep, unless you're on the board, you're good.
Well, not yet.
You don't have enough time.
Yeah, alright, then Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Peck,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Bajeris.
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger.
Yes.
Trustee Schmidt
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. Yep, thank you for the work going into the grant and the good work that Rotary Charities does. Moving on to the next item, for real this time, is the resolution to amend the 2024-2025 budget and general fund and special revenue fund budgets. Is there any discussion? For any comments?
I have none unless anybody else does. Christine, anything else to add?
Alright, if there's no questions, do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution to approve the second amendment to the 24-25 general fund budget and the second amendment to the 24-25 special revenue fund budget dated June 9th, 2025.
I second.
Alright, thank you. Any other questions? Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Peck,
Yes.
trustee Bajeris,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Aye.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the resolution for certification of the 2025-2026 tax levy. Any discussion or any other comments?
I move to adopt the resolution certifying the tax levy for the 2025-2026 school year dated July 1, 2025.
I second.
Second, alright. Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee trustee Hardy,
Aye.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bajeris,
Yes.
trustee Peck,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to the resolution to approve the original 2025-2026 operating budget, including the special reserve fund dated July 1st, 2025. Do I have any discussion, any other comments? If not, do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution to approve the original 2025-26 general fund budget and the original 2025-2026 special revenue fund budget dated July 1st, 2025.
Okay,
Second.
second, thank you. Any other discussion? Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Bajeris,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Aye.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Peck,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. The item added to the agenda was on item G, there was a student field trip approval request. This is for robotics invitational to Indiana, the Indiana Robotics Invitational. It was added just later, normally would I believe be on consent, but we had to have it on discussion. But with that, is there any other questions? I didn't think there would be, but.
I can give you, it's just the West team got invited to this, it's an off-season first competition. It's highly selective, so it's a big deal, they got invited, it's the second year in a row, so that's why it's late.
No, that's
That's
awesome
good.
achievement.
And it's on July 10th to 12th, so we couldn't wait till the next
Correct.
board meeting.
Yeah.
Or
I always
or
try.
finance.
I always try if I can, but
Yeah.
this one popped up.
And it's fine, these come up, so.
Also, I think it's important to note that it's to be funded by the TC West Robotics Boosters, not coming out of the general fund or any other
Yeah, we
central
just have
office
to approve
coffers.
it for out-of-state travel.
You had me at hello, so.
But with that, do I have a motion to approve? You have a-
I move to approve the student field trip request for the TC West Senior High Robotics Team number 3767 to participate in the Indiana Robotics Invitational on July 10th to 12th to be funded by TC West Robotics Boosters.
I second that.
Okay. I don't, actually, let's just, Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Ballinger.
Yes.
Trustee Majerus.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy.
Yes.
Trustee Peck.
Yes.
Trustee Schmidt.
Yes.
Trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. So we, that concludes the discussion items. We do have a couple of closed session items, so typically, we always move our second public comment up. Do we have second public comment? We do.
Nope, we got one right here.
So while you bring that up, the board has set aside it's time for public comment, and there was only one opportunity to speak since you haven't spoken. Individuals should not make personal attacks unrelated to actions affecting the school system, and we strongly encourage common courtesy and constructive feedback. Detailed rules and procedures, including a complaint process, are outlined in board policy 0167.3.
Mike Brett.
Thank you very much. I really wanna, first of all, start by complimenting you again. You conduct a very, strong meeting. You've got good information. You have studied the issues well. This board is tremendous. I think the staff has done a phenomenal job too. And, my experience, as an administrator at the Michigan Department of Education, I saw nearly 1,000 school districts in action, and you are doing the right thing for these kids. So I do want to mention that I've only been officially here in this community for 4 years now, but since the last time I spoke to you, I reviewed my school data, the annual education report, the portrait of a graduate, the listening tour findings, the current strategic plan, and certainly this update today was phenomenal. More information and very impressive. My understanding, having visited this area for nearly 50 years now, is that this predecessor boards and this district left a lot to be desired. And if your goal was to stabilize this board and this community and this district, you have achieved your objective. But John keeps saying, you're not done. Lots to be done here. There always will be. Okay? But you've got some stability now in some of the most basic functions that allow you to succeed at your primary task of serving students, increasing student achievement. One thing I noted was all the accolades that John mentioned early in the meeting, the kids and the teachers and the staff who have accomplished a great deal this year. It's easy to overshadow the kids who struggle and yet achieve something they may not be proficient, they may not have won an award or given a presentation, but they are coming up, they are making progress. And a lot of kids stall for a year or two, and then exceed that plateau and turn into something really phenomenal in the future year. So I think you've got to focus on student achievement at all levels and with each student. And
Thank you, Mr. Radke, I'm sorry, your time's up.
okay, thank you very much.
Alright, thank you so much. So now we are going to move on to the closed session portion of our agenda. We have a couple of closed sessions and we will return to the room in between each one. So do I have a motion for the board to go into closed session?
I move that the Board of Education go into a closed session for the purpose of strategy, is that right? Connected with the negotiation of multiple collective bargaining agreements allowed by the Open Meetings Act PA 267 of 1976, Section 8(1)(c).
A second?
Second.
Alright. Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Ballinger.
Yes.
Trustee Schmidt.
Yes.
Trustee Bajeris.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy.
Aye.
Trustee Pat.
Yes.
Trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries, so we're now in closed session. We will return to this room after the first closed session. session as so moving on, we do have to return and going back into closed session, there is another closed session proposed for superintendent mid-year evaluation. Do I have a proposal to go into closed session?
Everybody.
Yes.
I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purposes of conducting a periodic personnel evaluation as allowed by the Open Meetings Act PA 267 of 1976, Section 8(1)(a), period.
Alright, do I have a second?
Second.
Nope, you're first, so, okay, any discussion? Tammy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Peck,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bajeris.
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Aye.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries, we're now in closed session, return to the room after closed session. We are now in open session, board president closing remarks, just wanted, well, actually, board just closing on the, coming out of the mid-review, this is a new legally required mid-year process, and we are maintaining goals as is right now. However, with the new strategic plan, I do believe it's likely the intent of the board to update the goals along with the new strategic plan in the upcoming months. So with that said, that we will move on to closing remarks, which is just, we did cover an exec that I do want to note going forward. We will likely try and schedule meetings with superintendent evaluations an hour earlier. This will allow us to put the focus on the evaluation, mainly because the feedback from all board members is by the time we get to it, like tonight. Usually it's worse because there's a lot more stuff we have to do. It's really hard to be like, okay, let's spend the time that really we need to spend with John, that's our main role as a board, and we usually get to the point and we're all exhausted and everyone's out of here. So we're gonna start putting it at 5 o'clock, and that way we will have an hour dedicated, and if we're done with an hour, we will recess and we'll start the rest of the meeting at 6. But we have to do it in a session, so.
I just wanna say, to my memory, we've had those closed sessions for about an hour for the year-end evaluation, which is longer than the quarterly reviews, and we have that MASB tool, which is quite extensive. I'm wondering, to be on the safe side, if we wanna make the meeting 4:30 and then have the break.
The end of the year one you're talking
Yes,
specifically? I am a little worried about the end of the year one, but we will have at least one quarterly one before then to see how it goes on the 5, and then we can make the decision on the other one.
Test flight it.
Yeah, so I agree.
Quarterly one that was informal and.
That's why I said we start them, but I do have the same concern of making sure, we could also push the general portion of the meeting back to 6:30. So
That also
tell everyone,
works.
really the problem is you wanna make enough time so the public knows when we're gonna start and know that if we schedule an hour and a half and it takes 45 minutes, but then we're probably gonna recess for 45 minutes, the public has a definitive time.
And
How about this? I'll be there whenever you want me.
I was just gonna say, Tammy, just let me know when I'm supposed to be there.
So that's just a note that is what I'm going down scheduling and intend to bring that as a formal change. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
I
All those opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned.